Hey guys, hey Dirk. Yes, we are going to be talking some Tony Montana. So, yeah, definitely going to be talking about that tonight. And we're going to be talking about that one first off because that is the movie from 1983. The other one is from 1984. So, it looks like we got about four or five people in here. Um, yeah, John. You can join anytime you want. I have the link in there in the chat, the StreamYard link. If you need me to repost it, I can repost it. I was actually hoping that um, some people would want to come on. Um, so yeah, and whenever you're ready, John, and like I said, if you need me to repost that, I can do that. I can repost that link. Um, guys, I'm sorry for being a little distracted. As always, when I get ready to do a stream, my dogs they want out, they want this and that, they want to be back here with me or whatever. And they just drive me absolutely bonkers. So if I seem a little distracted, that's why. Um, okay, I see John backstage, so I'm going to go ahead and add John to the stream here. Hey, John.
What's up?
Not a lot. I've been working a lot, so getting my feet wet with that new job, and it sounds like you've been busy with work too.
Yeah, it was like 10 minutes ago. My dog, he got one of my screen protectors. I got some
Oh no!
iPhone screen protectors, and he went downstairs. He was eating, and he came back up, and I just heard like chomp, chomp, chomp. I was like, "Fuck, what has he got?" I like ran up here, and he had one in his mouth, and he was just taking off with it. So
Oh
I had
my
to get it.
gosh!
Nice. He's playing nice now because I have this.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
I just beep him, and he like acts good. So yeah. No, it's been working and stuff. Same car issues, just normal
Oh
stuff.
yeah, that's right. You were having some vehicle issues as well. So yeah, that's no fun. I don't even drive, and I know that's not fun. So uh,
Yeah, I don't even. I had a truck and I didn't even have it a month, and I've got to replace the starter on it. So I've got it in the shop now. It's not too bad. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, but I got to put a new starter and all on it. So, but it's an old truck. I just got it
mhm.
used. It's not really like a daily driver, so it's just like a it's just one I bought. So I kind
Mhm.
of knew going in it was going to be a thing. So I told my wife, she's got her car, and I was like, we'll just, I'll fix it, but it's not like priority. So
Right. Well,
cars.
it's still rough. We don't want to become dependent on our vehicles and stuff like that, but then we do for those of us that do drive. I know Steve has had, back when he had his Jeep, that Jeep was like a pain in the ass. Every time you turn around, something was going out, some sensor or something was going out. I was so glad when he got rid of that thing finally. Um, but you could have vehicle problems at any point in time, no matter what vehicle you have. It just seems like those Jeep Liberties are hard to deal with once they get a few years old, especially.
Yeah, I sell cars a lot. So like I had a new car and then I didn't need it. So I sold it. And then my wife, Becca, she has a new car. And I
Hmm.
wasn't going to get a car. And then I wanted like a used truck. So I've pretty much owned Dodge Rams forever, just like my fourth one.
Right.
And I found one, but all I could think, like, I went dead Friday on the interstate and I was waiting on a tow truck and I was sitting there and all I could think was 2 months ago I had no car and no fucking problems with cars. And
Well,
then I buy a car and it's like I got all this crap to deal with now.
I know the first Thanksgiving that me and Steve were together, he wanted to come pick me up. And like, then we were going to go to his mom's for Thanksgiving that year.
Hmm.
And I was all excited, new relationship and everything. And I was going to spend Thanksgiving with him. I was all excited. And what happens to him? That damn Jeep broke down on the interstate with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had to get a tow truck, and then it had to be towed to a garage near my mom and dad's house.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it was expensive to fix too. Steve never let me forget about that. He was like, "Remember when I went to that garage near your mom and dad's and they charged me out the ass for?" I said, "Yes, Steve, I know, but they're going to charge you out the ass no matter where you go, honestly."
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but my parents were good enough to, or my mom, I should say, was good enough to let Steve borrow her vehicle. I mean, me and Steve hadn't even been dating that long at
Mm-hmm.
that point, but she said, "Steve," she said, "you can take my vehicle and y'all can go back to Louisville and then you can go to Campbellsville to see your mom and stuff. That's fine. I won't even need to use it
Mm-hmm.
during that time." So we kind of lucked out there, but it was just a little bit iffy there for a little bit whether we were even going to get to spend Thanksgiving together or not.
Yeah, it's
Um,
always sucks with cars. Yeah, my Becca had a Jeep like when I first met her. It was like it may have been a Jeep Liberty. It was like a little short, and I knew like because I've had a lot of Chryslers before, and like I know what to avoid. And she had like all kinds of problems with it. And I remember she got a new car. We were dating, so I wasn't like long enough with her dating to tell her what kind of car to get, but I was like trying to help her, and I was like, "Don't get another Jeep." So she got like another car, and that Jeep, I don't know what happened to it, but it was a lot of problems. So,
mhm. Yeah, so when Steve's was like, I think it was maybe
mm,
5 or 6 years old, that's when the sensors all start going out. It was just one sensor right after the other he was having trouble with on it.
yeah.
Dirk says, there was a time I rode a bike to work. Not joking. I came from nothing. Well, at least you were making it to work, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I've known people that walk to work, and it wasn't like a short walk. It was, walking into town from out in the sticks, where I used to live when I lived with my parents. So um, it's not easy sometimes, but people people make do with what they've got, I guess.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do for sure.
Hmm. So let's go ahead, and if anybody wants to join in a little bit later, I know I was thinking Darren had said something early on about maybe joining in. Um, so if he comes in a little bit later, or if any of you guys decide you want to be on, Darcy, you're driving me crazy. You're gonna have to get out of this chair.
I did watch Body Double today, so I had not seen that since like I'd seen it a few times, but it'd probably been like maybe since 2006 or five since I'd watched
Yeah,
it.
it had been a long time, and I
Yeah.
rewatched it last night, and I could not reach my DVD of it
Hmm.
because the long table I've got my guinea pig enclosure on,
Hmm.
I didn't have anywhere else to put that. Of course, Steve would say you didn't need those guinea pigs, and then you wouldn't have this problem. But the only place I could put it was in front of one of my DVD shelves in the very back room. So there are some that I just can't reach. Even if I get one of those little grabber things and
Hmm.
try to get them, I still can't reach
Uh,
some of them. So I was just like, well, screw it. I'll just see if I can find another way to watch it. And Steve said, well, I think it's on my hard drive or one of my hard drives. And I was like, okay. So we found it. And
right.
that's how I watched it last night. But it's been years since I watched it. I had forgotten the majority of the plot of that movie. It had been so long since I watched it. And I had forgotten Barbara Crampton was at the beginning of it. I was like, holy crap, Barbara Crampton's in this.
Yeah, there's another. I don't want to get far into it yet, but yeah, there was
Uh,
another cameo I noticed too. I
yeah.
remembered all the beats, but it was like I kind of told I was like thinking about it, and I was like, do I like this movie as much as I remember? And I watched it, and I was like, yeah, this movie's great. Like I
Yeah.
could see why it's talked about. But I've seen Scarface a lot. I haven't seen Scarface lately, but I
Hmm.
feel like I've seen Scarface enough to where I remember most of everything in it, the beats
Yeah,
and
I
everything. So
did, but I still went back and started rewatching it last night, and then I fell asleep. Not because the movie was boring, just because I've been tired lately, and I've just dozed off and woke up near the end when a lot of gunfire and stuff was going on. I was like, "Oh crap!" Fell
yeah,
asleep. So I ran it back a little bit this evening and watched the rest of it, like the last 50 minutes, 45, 50 minutes.
oh, the whole mansion shootout and all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a crazy whole thing.
So we're gonna get to those. Actually gonna get to Scarface first, and then Body Double after that. But I don't know how many of you are participating in the dinner portion of this, but I was gonna try to do a Cuban thing, like some kind of Cuban food.
Hmm.
Um, but then I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not going to send Steve out to get Cuban food because he might have had to go a ways. He might have had to go to the Highlands and go to Havana Rumba or something like that to get some kind of Cuban sandwich.
Havana Rumble, that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, Steve and I have been there one or two times. Heck, he may have been there more before me, but since we've been married, it's been one or two times. But the other option I had on there, of course, you guys can eat anything you want. I'm not going to like grade you on what you're eating if you're participating in this. But I decided to go the food truck route,
Hmm.
which was the other option I had on there. If you have favorite Cuban food or a favorite Cuban sandwich that you could get real quick. So Steve brought home, if I can get it off there, Steve brought home Taco Bell. And so
Nice.
I was like, tacos aren't really Cuban food. There are Cuban tacos, but this fits with kind of like the food truck
Hmm.
type of deal. And there is one scene in Body Double where Craig Watson's character kind of goes to a food truck,
Hmm.
or it seems like a food truck to me. And I can't remember what he got. If he got anything like tacos or what he got, but
He ordered, it was like 2 Cokes and I guess it was 2 burgers and fries, or you're too hot. It was something
oh
with
god,
onions because
god,
he said onion. Because I remember he said onions on everything. I
uh,
only remember that because I literally like watched this at like 4. It was like, or 3 to 5. So I just, everything's real fresh. But it was
oh
like, I remember he said onions on everything, and then he went home after. But
yeah. So we're gonna get to that, but if you guys don't mind me eating my Dorito Locos taco while I'm talking about Scarface, Reggie, move. He's wanting to get my tacos. What he's wanting to do. This is my snack for the night. Steve brought me home a chalupa as well, and I ate it for dinner. But so anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get started with Scarface. Um, I remember the first time I watched this movie, I was like, "Wow, this movie!" I mean, it's crazy, bloody,
mhm.
uh, very violent,
Yes.
uh, extremely violent.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, or I feel like the drug culture or the crime culture, the period of time that it's supposed to be representing,
Hmm.
which was like, I guess when Castro was sending the criminal element over was like 1980, I believe, was
Yeah.
when all those ships were coming in. And some of them weren't criminals; they were just regular people that were, I guess, meeting up with family that had moved to the United States.
Hmm.
Um, because Al Pacino's character, Tony Montana, um, his mother and his sister were already in the United States by the
Right.
time he came over from Cuba. Um, so you get a good look at Tony, um, right off the bat. basically him and his friend Manny.
Hmm.
They're like two of the main guys that you see the majority of this movie. Um, and you know that Tony's not a good guy. I mean,
No, no,
he's, there are not. I mean,
no.
and
He has his code of honor, but he is not a good
he
guy
is
at all. No.
no, and you can just tell by the way he interacts with anybody that's supposedly in charge, any
Hmm.
cops, any kind of official guys. He has no respect for these guys. And later on in the movie, um, I don't feel like as a viewer of the movie that I had any respect for the cops and stuff because they were just as bad as the crime guys.
Yeah, they were right
Um,
there with it.
yeah, and all they were wanting was, give us some money under the table. That's all they wanted from the crime guys. Um, and there were very few, like, well, actually, nobody that was good was highlighted in this movie. I mean, even Tony's mother, she rejects him at every, I know she's disappointed in him and stuff because he
Yeah.
he didn't really make anything of himself and he just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper into trouble, and she was scared that he was going to drag his sister Gina down with him, which pretty much is what ends up happening as the movie goes on. I guess Gina starts out as the most pure character.
Gina, yeah, I guess his wife, Michelle Pfeiffer, Elvira. I
Hmm.
guess, like, in ways, she's a victim. Yeah. One,
Hmm.
one thing about this movie, it's funny, is, and I remember this, but I'm looking at some of the cast again, and it's like, I'm sure some people watching, I don't know who's a fan of this, but like Breaking Bad, they,
Hmm.
that like Vince Gilligan, I think Vince Gilligan, the guy that made Breaking Bad, they were a fan of this movie because like they
Oh
hired
yeah.
Maney. He's in Breaking Bad. He's in one of the seasons. Hector, what's his name? Hector Salamanca in Breaking
Yeah.
Bad. Isn't this? He's the guy that's in the car when they're trying to
Mhm.
bomb the
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of the actors in this movie, there's a lot of things like you could almost in a way watch this movie and then watch Breaking Bad, and it's not the same thing, but you can almost believe it's the same universe in a way, just different characters, because it's like
Right.
it has that same like seedy feel where there's like nobody's really a good guy, and
Right.
I don't know. It's maybe that's just me, but that's the thing that I most take away from this now when I watch it, because I was such a fan of Breaking Bad. I was like, oh, this is
Mm.
just like it's almost like a prequel, you know.
But
But
I kind of like it that Scarface is not cut and dried. That, hey, these are the good people on this side. These are the bad people on this side. There are no clear divisions with these people.
no,
Um, and see, even Tony, he won't kill women and children.
right? That's
You
his.
know, unless you're trying to kill him. But a mother with children, that's part of his code. He will not do that. And he will go to great lengths to prevent anybody else from doing that, which means that this one guy gets shot in the head and his brain splattered all over the window in the scene where they've got a bomb under the car.
Yeah,
Tony thinks that they're just going to blow up the guy in
yeah.
there, but then his wife and his kids get in there, and you can see the kids playing in the back seat. And what is that is
He's like, no
reminiscent.
way, no way, man, no
Exactly.
way. No, he just starts losing it. I love that scene.
The
Yeah.
other movie that is reminiscent of to me, and I was just thinking about it, just popped in my head, was The Hitcher. Um, there is a scene where um, it's where he already knows that the hitchhiker, is killing people that give him a
Yeah.
ride. And then he sees him in the car with these kids in the back seat and they're playing. and he
Yeah.
kind of just like waves at him, and it's real wicked. Like, but that scene with the kids playing in the back seat just sort of reminds me. And I don't know, was it people that made The Hitcher, like if they had seen Scarface and thought, "Hey, that's a pretty cool shot. Let's put it in here." But
It's
I
possible.
guess it's possible. It was just about 3 years after Scarface came out that The Hitcher came out. I think it was like 86.
Yeah, I think this movie, the unfortunate thing about this movie is I do think, and this is just my opinion, but objectively, I think this is absolutely De Palma's best movie. Like, I think if you just stack all of his movies up, this is like the one that's like the classic. Like, if someone came to me and were like, you need to watch a Brian De Palma movie. I want to watch a Brian De Palma movie. What's the best one? My first instinct is Scarface, just because it's hard to find a flaw in it, really.
Right.
And there's so much about it, like just from the action, the suspense, like the characters, the acting, the music. The music is tremendous in this movie. And like,
yes.
even like that scene with the bomb, like the score when they're in that car and they're following, like that's just like so well done. And that's not to insult the other De Palma movies. I just think like if I'm talking, I don't even know if it's like my favorite of his, but I just think like as far as like being the best movie, I would probably give it to this one personally. But
and even those where it's not a long score, it's just kind of like something that's building tension. For instance, when Manny first gets a look at Gina after he hasn't seen her for years, because he makes the comment that he hadn't seen her since she was like a little girl, basically. And he's talking about how beautiful she is. And Tony gets this look in his eyes like, keep talking about my sister and I'm going to kill you. And that's music that kind of it's music, but it's almost like it's in Tony's mind, and it's just building and it's building and building. And you think, Manny, stop talking about her. He's going to pull out a gun and blow your head off. Because nobody messes with Tony's sister.
No. This kind of has the way Tony is in this movie and the way Al Pacino is, it reminds me a bit of like the feeling in Raging Bull. Like I was a big Raging Bull fan, still am, and like that feeling when you're watching Robert De Niro in Raging Bull and you're like kind of afraid of him, even as a viewer. You're just like, every scene, you're just like, oh God, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Like with him,
it makes you nervous.
Yes,
you're entire movie.
Because you just think at any point this guy's gonna snap and just kill somebody, and that's kind of, he played that so well. That line of just, you don't know what he's gonna do. You know, how he's going to react. And he's so like certain of himself, even when he's nobody.
Yeah.
I like that they portrayed it that way, that he's nobody, but he knows who he is. He knows he's not a great guy, but he has so much confidence. And it's like, that's kind of what pushes him forward. It's just that he doesn't have like a misfire or a misstep in what he's doing.
Even when he's as soon as he gets off that boat.
Yeah.
And it never really wavers the whole entire film. And you were talking about how it just makes you on edge just watching the whole film. The first time I saw it, when things started to go south with him and Elvira, Michelle Pfeiffer's character.
Yeah.
The scene in the restaurant closer to the end of the movie, where she actually says that she's leaving him. She don't have to put up with that shit. But before that, I thought he's going to beat the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Because he kept getting up and grabbing at her, and Manny was pulling him back. And there was that whole back and forth a little bit, and I thought she's going to go too far, and then he's just going to beat the shit out of her right in the middle of this restaurant in front of everybody. But he never got to that point, but it was always there. That tension never laughed the entire movie because you were always wondering what's Tony going to do next. How far is he going to go this time?
Yeah, I think she was kind of like, in a way, his weakness. Like him and his sister were kind of like his Achilles heel with like his emotions. Like he was demeaning, but that was like the only part of him that was like, in a way, I don't want to say compassionate, but he would hold back,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, like you're expecting him to do something, but I think in a way that was like the one thing in his life to where he wasn't gonna let loose and like lose his cool over the
Mm-hmm.
top like with other people. So
Right. Yeah. He never, in all his interactions with kids, even early on, where Manny was. This seems kind of funny, but Manny was telling him how to get women. This is how you
mhm.
get women in the United States.
Yeah.
And he does the whole flicking his tongue thingy. And so, it's very vulgar and stuff, the scene is, but it's also funny. But when Tony tells Manny, he says, yeah, go ahead and do it. I want to see you get a woman this way.
Yeah.
And he goes over to those two kids and he said, hey, I want you to watch this guy. Watch this guy over here. What's going to
Mhm.
happen? And that was probably the most endearing moment when Tony is interacting with those kids, because the kids are the only ones that really he never tries to get revenge on, that he never wants to hurt. He even ends up hurting his sister
Yeah.
at some point. Um, but these kids, he never once hurts a
Mm-mm.
kid, says a strong word to a kid, and he
Mhm.
wants kids so much. And he's angry at Elvira because she cannot give him what he wants.
Yeah.
Cannot give him a child.
I think that's one of the car bomb thing. He loses it so much.
Hmm.
It's like he just like, because he goes so. I mean, I think being a criminal in that situation, there's not really, what is it? There's no honor amongst thieves, right? But I
Hmm.
think even in that situation, like I think someone with like more of a control of their like temper and emotions probably could figure out a way to get out of that situation without just killing the guy.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't care. I mean, he's just
Mhm.
so. I think it's like with Tony, and I don't know if it's meant to represent like kind of how what maybe Cubans at that time went through when they came across the
Mhm.
border, but you can just tell he has seen some shit. He
Yeah.
has been through in some shit before even the movie starts. He has been through the ringer of some shit, because he even talks about how I'd never go back, and so it's like you have to wonder like what made him in that character, the way they were writing him, what made him that way, that
Mhm.
tough and that like emotional, like a powder keg,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
and just so bold. I mean, like just in that scene, like killing that guy without regard and just being like, I don't care, send him. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you got people, you got guns, I got more. Like just that like, that's not like a common criminal, right? That's not
No.
a
No.
typical just, you know, it's just interesting the way they wrote that. I always wondered if like when he wrote the character, like if they had like an elaborate backstory for him and like what they, because sometimes directors and writers do that. They don't put it in the
Yeah.
movie, but they create these big stories about characters about what makes them what they are. So
Yeah, and depending on what kind of actor Al Pacino is, he may have needed that backstory, or he may have. I know some actors and actresses dip into their own personal life to. No, I'm not saying that Al Pacino's a criminal. I'm just saying they may be able to get that anger or whatever it is they need from something in their personal life.
mhm.
And so I'm not sure if he did that or they did a backstory. I would love to know, though. Uh,
Yeah,
that would be interesting thing. What this movie is also about, I think, is excess
yeah, definitely.
and drowning in excess. And, we have excess of a lot of things here. We have excess of booze. We have excess of drugs. We have, in some cases, an excess of sex.
Yeah.
Although we don't see that as much with Tony. I mean, he obviously likes women.
Right.
But Manny seems to be the one that's always in bed with some naked chick or something like that. There's that whole scene where the naked blonde is curled up next to Manny while he's talking on the phone to Tony. So um, they they have all kinds of excess in this movie, even an excess of money.
Yeah.
There's a scene where the bank doesn't
Hmm.
want to take any more money from Tony because they're having to launder it. And
Hmm.
he tells him, he said, I can't clean any more money for you, you know.
Yeah,
And
that's like what Dirk was saying about. I agree with the excess, and it's like his when Dirk said his demise is that he gets that godlike mentality. That's pretty dead on. I mean,
mhm,
he wants power. He doesn't want, like you were saying, Manny's more of like the playboy. He doesn't necessarily want that. He's not like the cocaine and sex and all that. That's just like extra to him. He just wants to be like have power. He wants to be in control. He
mhm,
wants to be like a god almost and get to where he doesn't need anybody, you know. And it's kind of an interesting, like you were saying earlier, he ends up hurting his own sister. It's like it's interesting that
mhm,
there's no cost that's too high to get to that point for him. But
right.
it's clear that's like his goal early on is like he wants to be the guy, the head
Mhm.
dude. So
Yeah. And even, inside his house, the, the, planet or whatever you want to call it, the little statue thing, he has that represents everything that Tony wants right there. All you got
oh
to
yeah.
do is look at that. And it's like, yeah, that's Tony. That's what he wants. And it is like you said, um, no crime or no amount of hurt towards even family members is too high of a price for him to pay. He'll pay it.
Mm-mm.
And he will feel no guilt
No.
about it.
Well, even like the scene, I don't want to jump ahead, but like the scene where Omar and him go to what is it, Bolivia or something,
Hmm.
and they're dealing and basically like they're talking, he's talking, and then Omar says something, and then they take him out, put him in the helicopter,
Exactly.
and he's
That is,
watching it, and he plays that off so cool. He just is
mm,
like he's like fuck him, you know, like he
yeah,
just he just he's so like in check with everything, even because like most people in that scenario, even if you're a criminal, you'd be just crying. You'd be like, okay, don't kill me, you know. But
yeah,
he
yeah.
doesn't
Be worried that
grovel.
they're gonna kill you next because look what they
Yeah,
did to this guy.
he's like wheeling and dealing.
Mhm,
He's like I don't grovel. Even in the face of death, he doesn't like he
mhm.
just doesn't grovel.
He
And that's
was
just
acting like he was going to buy a car or something.
yeah.
And it was just a everyday life for him. It wasn't whereas a regular person, oh God, that's awful. I'm glad I'm not
Right.
there on the other side of these really bad dudes.
Right.
Um, so I don't want to miss people's comments here. So I'm going
Yeah.
to try to read some of these comments.
No, go for it.
Um, Darren did say, "Hey guys, sorry Dana, I didn't get a chance to rewatch Body Double." Oh, no problem, Darren. I mean, you could. I wouldn't have minded if you came on for the Scarface part of it if you wanted to, but yeah, it's all cool. Dirk says Scarface is a long one, but you can't tell it's paced perfect. Oliver Stone's script with De Palma's directing is perfect. Yeah, I think they were a perfect team, perfect writing and directing team. Also, Spielberg did one shot that was the staircase at the end. Yeah, I had forgotten about that, Dirk, until you brought that up again. Darren says, I got the Vinegar Syndrome shipping notice. So we'll have Evil Laugh in that box set with Moonstalker early next week.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
Moonstalker. That's
It's an interesting one.
All I can do is laugh about that movie. It's a fun one. I like watching it, but it's not a good movie.
I watched some of it on YouTube because there's a rip. Because
Yeah,
I'm not about. I saw the set and I thought it was cool, but I just didn't want to. I'm not gonna roll the dice on something that I don't know. But it did seem interesting, like the character, the main guy with the cowboy hat and the glasses. Like he had like
yeah,
an interesting look. So
yeah. It's just one of those crazy off the wall parts of the. I guess you could call it like a slasher, like subgenre type of film, but
mm,
I don't like to watch it a lot, but if it's been a while since I have watched it, I'll say, I'll watch Moonstalker, but I don't own a copy of it. I think Steve introduced me to it a while back because he found it on YouTube. I was like,
yeah.
oh, that sounds interesting. So then I watched it. I was like, well, this is fun, but it's not going to be for everybody though.
Mm.
I think Steve got his shipping notice too, and I think he got Evil Laugh for me.
Oh, cool.
So we should be getting that and whatever else. I forgot what he said that he ordered for himself with that. But he's a little bit concerned because he hasn't got any shipping notification about his Roadhouse.
I
For
got I did. So I got my MVD movies in yesterday. I got 10 of
Mhm.
them, and I got Roadhouse. It came yesterday. It's like a
Awesome.
big, like it's pretty cool. It's like a big, thick um, box. It's pretty dense for a
Oh,
movie. But I think the reason I got mine so fast was because I didn't do anything for Black Friday, so they
yeah.
shipped mine first. Because if you add to order, that's the problem. They
Well,
take their time.
yeah, I was thinking that Reggie, get down. I was thinking that because he added Evil Laugh to his order on Black Friday.
Mhm.
Um, so I was thinking, I probably won't get that till after Christmas. I probably won't get it till January or February. So I was shocked when he told me he already got a shipping notice on that.
Yeah, I don't know how their invoicing works, but the way they do it, it seems like they have they obviously have a hierarchy, like subscribers and then Black Friday
Hmm.
and all. But it seems like when they do that add to order thing, I feel like what happens is you do that and then it just like it points you back down the list.
Yeah,
So
it
it's
takes
like
you out of the queue and puts you back at the bottom somewhere
because
or
mine
near the
took
bottom.
forever last year. I mean, it was like or whenever it was in March. I mean, it took like a long time.
Yeah, the last time we did that, or I think I ordered and then I added to the order and put something for Steve on there or a couple of things for Steve. And yeah,
Mm.
it took for freaking ever to get it. Um, let's see. Dirk says, hell yeah, Darren, I got Moon of the Wolf and Death Wish 2 coming from Vinegar Syndrome.
Nice. That Death Wish looks cool. I almost got that. There's still a lot of stuff I want from them. I just it's just sometimes just money and and I'm like, well, I got these things I got to pay for, so I'm sure that I'll get more stuff later. I just have to sometimes space it out time wise.
I've went over a month without having any incoming money, and it's about to kill me. But that's what happens when you when you quit a job or leave a job and don't have something necessarily right there in place at that point in time. Oh, I had forgotten that Darren has not seen
Oh
Scarface.
man,
Oh yes, Darren, you definitely need to rectify that. Uh,
it's very
maybe
different. It's not it, and it is very. Scarface is not really like a lot of his other movies. Scarface is more in line with like Untouchables. Like it's
mhm,
more like that. It's not really like if you really love Dress to Kill and Carrie and all, it's not really like that. It's
no.
similar, but it's just it's different. But yeah,
Hey, Texas. You say, hey, all sorry I was late again. No problem. I don't have like official, I have times when I start, but I don't say, it's like those things where no one will be seated after the movie has started. I don't do that. You're not going to get kicked out if you're a little late. Dirk's giving one of the great lines. You think I'm a worm like you? Fuck you, Maine.
That's funny. I know, right? His accent in that movie's something.
Dirk says a lot of the shots are left to your imagination, which makes it much better, in my opinion.
I think that what I was saying, I just remembered earlier with the movie. Unfortunately, it is a movie that has gotten sort of like thrown into pop culture so much with like the gangster scene and like video
Yeah.
games and like it was like, for a while Scarface was like every rapper's favorite movie. And so I think because of that, a lot of people just kind of pass it over and they're kind of
Mhm.
just like, oh yeah, Scarface, right? Like, but take all that out of it, I still just think it's just, I mean, I'd probably say like 20, at least top 20 best movies ever made. I don't know, maybe top 10, but definitely in the top 20 ever, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I would have to agree with that too. Um, Speaking of video games, Dirk did say Grand Theft Auto took so much from Scarface as well.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
uh, let's see. And Dirk also says this is a remake from the 1932 Scarface, The Rise and Fall of an Immigrant Gangster. Yeah, I had forgotten about that too. But I'm sure that the 1932 one was, in our eyes at least, was quite a bit tamer than the one with Al Pacino. So
I haven't seen that one. I've always wanted to. I
yeah,
know
I
of it, but I've
haven't.
never watched it.
I also agree with this, Dirk. Stephen Bauer, who plays Manny in the movie, doesn't get enough credit for this film, and he certainly does not. Al Pacino's the big guns in this movie, and
Hmm.
Al Pacino's the one that everybody talks about. Oh, he's great in this, and he is great. He's
Yeah,
fantastic in this, but I can see where Stephen Bauer would get looked over, and it's a shame that he did get looked over, and probably still does get looked over for new people that are watching the film because they're all eyes are on Tony in this movie.
it said that John Travolta was considered for Manny's role once. I didn't know that.
I
That's
mean,
funny.
I love John Travolta's acting and stuff, but I don't know. I just
Yeah.
maybe it's because I've seen Stephen Bauer in this, and I'm already my mindset is already on him.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but even though John Travolta is a fantastic actor, I just don't know if he could have pulled this one off.
Well, and he doesn't look Cuban either, which
No,
I know that doesn't always matter. I know because they got like the guy playing Omar. I forget his name. He was an Amadeus. He's obviously not Cuban, and
no,
like even what's his name, Robert Loggia in the
yeah,
movie. Like he's Robert Loggia is he always kind of plays different roles and gangsters and bad guys. So
oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's I don't know. I agree. Travolta for that, I don't think would have worked. I just
Mm-mm.
don't. I don't see it.
I mean, De Palma had used him in other films, most notably that I talked about recently with Blowout,
Hmm.
and he was great in that one. But I think he fit the role well.
Hmm.
Um, but
Oh,
let's
definitely.
and Dirk also says the accent and most of Pacino's characters because of Stephen Bauer's coaching, and I wouldn't doubt that. Uh, like the chainsaw kill. Yeah,
Oh
that
God.
chainsaw kill.
Sheesh. With Angel, isn't it
Yeah,
Angel the one who gets it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh.
That that chainsaw kill, and it's coming.
Yeah.
You know it's coming. You know there's no way out of it. I mean, because
Right.
they got this guy basically handcuffed in the bathtub. There's no way and they got a gun practically to Al Pacino's head um, in this, and they got all kinds of other weapons. Even the weird woman that's laying on the bed when they come in there, she's dang it, she's got a big old gun too.
Hmm.
Um, but these are some pretty, even though Tony's a criminal and he's obviously a bad guy, these people are sadistic.
Yes.
Which gives them an extra layer of bad. Um, and so back to that chainsaw kill, even though you don't see, it's not like a pieces shot where you see the chainsaw slicing through somebody and cutting them in half. But
Mm-mm.
in a way, it's worse
Right.
because you can hear the guy screaming, you can see the blood splashing on the shower curtain,
Hmm.
and you can hear that damn chainsaw grinding.
You see Al Pacino's face when it
And
hit
you see,
him.
yeah, and you see Al Pacino's face as well. So, in a lot of ways, that scene is more, and this might sound blasphemous to some people because I love pieces, but in a lot of ways, it's more effective
Hmm.
than that blatant scene in pieces where the girl is cut in half, and yeah, it's visceral, it's in your face, and all that, but De Palma lets your mind do a lot of the work here.
Well, the
So,
De Palma one is more real. I think that's
yeah.
really where it kind of like. I think a lot of I love as much as I love slasher movies. A lot of times they're over the top. They're just kind
Right.
of like they like when it's real like that in one of these type of movies. It's like really disturbing because that's pretty dead on to what probably would have happened in the 70s and 80s with the cartel. I mean, that's
Mhm.
honestly that's probably tame. Some of those cartel guys were insane. Like the
Yeah.
stuff they would do to people, like that's probably not even as bad as some of the stuff that actually did happen. And
Right.
but I agree though, it's like your theater, your mind. You don't see it, but you see
Mhm.
the blood, and you see everyone else, and you hear it, and that's yeah.
It's more like if you want to compare it to another chainsaw scene in a movie, it's more like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
Like when
definitely.
Franklin is killed, you see blood flying, you hear Franklin screaming, but you don't see a lot otherwise. Oh, when you see Sally screaming as well and just throwing up her hands and stuff, and
Yeah.
that and in a lot of ways that is more effective again than just blatantly if Leatherface had taken the chainsaw
Right.
and just cut Franklin's arms off or something like that, right in front of your
Or
eyes.
like in the new one, pull her out of the Tesla and cut her.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's the whole less is more thing. It works. It's kind of what separates to me that kind of stuff is kind of what separates like classics versus just movies. When you
Mhm.
have that kind of like detail. Not that I like gore. I think it really can work and be pretty fun and like cool in a
Right.
movie, but I think like just it's just like the difference in like what you're kind of it's like the difference in what you're trying to achieve, right? You're trying
Mhm.
to achieve like what kind of reaction you're trying to get.
Yep.
And like you said, I don't think it would have been the same scene if you just showed everything. I think it wouldn't have been it would have been gross, but it wouldn't be
Mhm.
as scary.
And I don't think it wouldn't have seemed like De Palma,
No.
'cause, and again, people might think this is blasphemous, but I think De Palma's a little more classier
Yeah.
than that.
Oh,
Um,
for sure. Yeah.
I don't think that De Palma is interested in making a purely exploitation type of film. He is interested in making a film I think that people are going to remember for years to come, and people that have seen Scarface definitely remember it. Um, Even people that saw it in 1983 when it came out, they're probably still, quoting lines from this damn movie. Um, I another thing I was thinking about is I th- I think about movies that my dad may have not seen, and I don't think I've ever heard him mention Scarface. I think I
Mhm.
need to mention this movie to him because Dad saw a lot of films over the years, and he and Mom used to like I said before, they used to go to drive-ins a lot earlier in their marriage when me and my brother were both real young. Um, but that was more of like the exploitation type of horror movie, things like Death Ship, Gates of Hell, stuff like that. That's what they were singing at the drive-in. I doubt very seriously they would have seen Scarface at the drive-in. Um,
It's very heavy too. It's a heavy watch. I
mm,
mean, and yeah, De Palma is he's clearly like a big Hitchcock fan. Like that's even in Body
yes.
Double. Yeah, I can't. I noticed something today. I'll bring it up later that I'd never thought about. But I mean, he's definitely a student of that type of filmmaking. So he's not gonna. Um, he's obviously not afraid of like pushing things to the limit with like
Mm,
literally with things, but he's it's like Dirk was saying, insulting intelligence. He's out to make like something very like shocking, but very like memorable to the audience.
mhm,
He's not there just for like the driving down the road looking at the car wreck and like you can only yeah, I mean there is something to that, but he knows that there's a lot more to achieve other than just that, right?
mhm,
So,
exactly.
and a lot of filmmakers just can't figure that out or they don't know how to. They don't know how to like get that right. I feel like this movie I'm sure Tarantino is like a huge fan of De Palma. And I would
Mhm,
imagine a lot of De Palma's movies Tarantino wishes he could make like that.
yeah,
Because Tarantino is, I love Tarantino, but I don't think he can pull that. I think he has to put humor in all of his movies. Like he
yeah.
can't just he can't pull the punches like that well.
Mm-mm. And De Palma's almost a one in a million type of director.
Yeah,
I just don't, especially nowadays, I don't see directors even trying to mimic or um, make a homage or whatever you want to call it to De Palma's style of filmmaking. You just don't see that anymore.
no, the only filmmaker in like the past 20 years that I thought was like really masterful with like a lot of stuff was Chris Nolan.
Mhm.
I thought he was real masterful with like his storytelling. I mean, he had flaws in his movies, but he's the only one that really stands out to me above
Mhm.
others in the past 20 years. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson, some of those guys are good too,
Right.
but I agree, no one's doing like De Palma, like that kind of stuff.
And to be completely honest, and I don't wanna, oh, Curly Jaws, if you're out there watching or lurking or whatever and not in the chat, or if you see this later, please don't take offense, but I don't think the today's generation of film goers would appreciate De Palma. Um, Very few of them. There might be a one
Right.
in a million, a handful of uh, young people from like the generations of the last, few years. But I just can't see them liking these movies like we all like them, like the people in the chat, like me and you, John. I just don't see they wouldn't be talking about them the way we're talking about them. They'd be like, what the heck are y'all talking about? Talking about these movies are just masterful and fantastic and stuff.
Yeah, a lot
But
of people now, it's like with the films, they're just they're so much of it now is driven by like agendas and like studios what like it's
mhm,
like agendas and politics and all kind of drive a lot of the studios, so they're trying to market
yeah,
that for certain reasons with and it's so in your face and it's just not, and I think kids now are conditioned for certain types of movies and they're in
right,
the attention span. That's the big thing is like attention span. Like a lot of kids now with like TikTok and everything, it's just like
yeah,
you're conditioned to like only have an attention span of like 20 seconds. So like
exactly.
slow stories, slow builds, like taking your time, that kind of thing. That's a hard sell for kids because they're just not used to it.
Yeah,
So,
and everybody thought that the MTV generation was bad. when MTV got big and, you
Yeah.
know, it was all these flashy music videos and stuff, they were saying it's kind of the same thing back then. This generation that grew up with MTV, they can't appreciate like a slow burn
Right.
of a movie. But now it's even worse, like you said, with things like TikTok, where it's just, you know, a few seconds of somebody getting on there and talking about something and then getting off there, or maybe on there for 5 minutes showing you how to make a bracelet or something. You know, it's just quick and dirty, and then it's time to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And it is an attention span thing, and with things like Twitter, where people put a few words, you know, that's all you can put basically on Twitter, and you know, so you got to say what you want to say in as few words as possible. And so people
Yeah.
get used to that mindset of just tell me about it real quick. They probably also couldn't appreciate a movie that's almost 3 hours long, which,
No.
which Scarface is 2 hours and 50 minutes long.
The only
Uh,
thing that you can do now is like that's kind of where TV shows took over, is like
yeah.
the long form of TV shows. That does work because I think people are used to that. You can tell that story, and that's kind of where a lot of that has gone to. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's very much like 20 seconds, very quick. Like it's almost like with pop culture now, people in a way, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of the kids, they just want like the cliff notes of everything.
Yeah, give me the Reader's Digest condensed
Yeah.
version, and I'll
Mhm.
move on.
And then Twitter's the worst too because you just see a lot of. I don't hate Twitter, but like it's a whole lot of stuff that you read, and it's just like stuff like it's like Born Yesterday type shit where people just say
Uh-huh.
things, and you're just like, it's either stuff that was like very obvious or has already been discussed, or it's like it just. I mean, I think it's just a generation gap. Kids just they think they're the first ones to think of something, or they're like, "Oh, this is great. Have you heard of this band or this movie?" It's like, yeah, no shit, that was known 30 years ago. Like, but it's just it's a gap. My hope
Yeah.
is that maybe filmmakers um, will bridge that. There are some films where I feel that happens, but it's just a gap and it takes time. Um, I hope it gets better. You know, I still love new movies, but there's not as much of this kind of movie that's out.
Right. Dirk brings up a good point, which I'm going to make a comment on this. He said superhero movies run long as hell now, and
Yes.
I agree. But the comment I wanted to bring up regarding that is, it seems like they make a lot of movies long that don't need to be long.
Right.
I mean, you've got like low budget slasher movies running almost 3 hours long.
Yep.
We don't need that. The Terrifier 2 movie is one big example of that. What was that one, 2.5?
It was longer than The Dark Knight. It
Yeah.
was longer than The Dark Knight. Like I don't think there's like a lot of people who would uh, I don't want to say that, but I think that most people would objectively say The Dark Knight was like a great movie. And
Mhm.
like, would you make a slasher movie and it has to be that long? I'm like, what the hell? Like, if you took 40 minutes off that movie, it would be, I think it'd be way better, but to each their own. It was definitely too long for sure.
But, you know, I'm not trying to, like, put Terrifier 2 down, because
No.
I know that some people liked it. That's just the one that pops into my mind
Mm-hmm.
as, like, an example of a movie that's way too long that didn't need to be that long.
Yeah.
But they do that with a lot of movies. There's some superhero movies, in my opinion, that don't need to be that long.
No, not at
Some
all.
of them okay, but some of them definitely do not need to be as long as they are. And it's just like everybody, almost all directors are following suit. You
Yeah.
know, it's like the superhero movies are long. Okay, I'm making a low budget horror movie, so I'm going to make mine 3 hours long or 2.5 hours long or whatever. When used to, an hour and 45 minutes was long for a horror movie or a suspense movie or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but now it's everybody. It's like It's, I talked about excess in the Scarface movie, but this has become a generation of excess. Everything's excessive.
Yeah, really 90 minutes is usually the sweet spot for most movies that are like
I
non.
think so too.
And I think the rule usually was always, I didn't go to film school, but I used to study a lot of it when I acted. And the rule of thumb was always usually like a minute a page. So that's
Hmm.
why like a 90-page script, 90 minutes, right? That kind of thing. So I do agree. They run so long, and a lot of times filmmakers are making movies that don't need to be, like, the story doesn't warrant that. They're just expanding it.
Right.
Sometimes, like, because sometimes you watch a movie that's 90 minutes and you feel like it's fairly long.
Hmm.
And then sometimes you watch a movie that's 2 hours and you just feel like it won't end. And it's just like
Right.
sometimes the story just doesn't need, it's like they're just stretching it, like adding water. What is it? Adding water to the recipe. They're just milking it. They're just stretching it out, stretching it out. It's like you don't have to, the whole point is to make a story that's concise and fits, right? So,
And I tell you something you definitely don't want to do, because Steve did this and it was a bad idea. Is you don't take gummies, THC gummies, and and watch any length of a movie, because I forgot what he was watching now, but this was when he first got those THC gummies in, and he made the mistake of like taking two of them
oh no.
and then sat down to watch the movie, which I'm forgetting what it was, but it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
the movie wasn't that long, but Steve was like, how long is this movie gonna be? That stuff kicked in. I thought I was never gonna get him under control. He
That's
was trying
funny.
to brush his teeth and everything under the influence of THC gummies.
Wow, that's
And
funny.
I was like, Steve, you're gonna hurt yourself. I said, you just need to like go lay down and sleep this off.
That's
And that's
funny.
when he got to laughing so hard. I've never seen Steve ever squeeze his eyes tightly together so much in the entire time we've been married as he did when he took two gummies that time. And he was laughing at everything.
I took
Everything.
I took a few of those once. I've only done them once. I didn't take the Delta. I didn't take the strong ones. I took the Delta. I think it's the Delta 9. It's the ones that are not strong.
Mm,
I was at Becca and I were at a friend's house in Georgia, and we were
uh-huh.
watching a movie with them, and it was that new movie with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum where it's like a ripoff of
Oh,
Romancing the Stone. I
yeah.
forget the name of it. It was okay. But he was like, I have these gummies. He was like, have you ever had these? And I was like, I don't want to, I was like, I don't mess with that shit. And he was like, oh,
Right.
they're not strong. They don't really work. So I had like 4 or 5 of them. They
Uh,
didn't work. But the only thing that was funny was it didn't work. But the next morning I woke up and I just
uh,
felt like, it was almost like a slow effect. I guess in the middle of the night, it
I
just
guess
makes you
maybe it
tired,
kicked in later or something.
Yeah,
Well,
I woke up the next morning, I was like really tired.
what
So,
happened to Steve was he took one and he didn't feel any effects, but he should have just left it at that and
mhm,
waited for it to take effect. Instead, he took another one.
yeah.
And when both of those kicked in, and I think he has the Delta 8s, I think that might be what he has. I haven't looked at them in a while. But I tried them and I only tried one. And I did it like they said, like I cut it in half and I took
Mhm.
half and then I waited 30 to 45 minutes and I took the other one. And I was afraid that it was going to throw me into a panic attack, because I started, when both halves kicked in,
Mhm.
I started feeling weird, I guess is the best way to describe it. And um I got thirsty and wanted to get up and go to the refrigerator and get a soft drink or something out and drink it. So I got up off the couch,
Mhm.
and I don't even know how I made it to the kitchen, because it was so weird. It was like I would lift my foot up to walk, and it would seem like it took an extra half a second for my foot to hit the floor. And it was, and I've never smoked pot. I've
Yeah.
never ate, I had never ate like brownies with it in it, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, I've never vaped it. So I just had no idea really. And people have told me that I need, if I want to try it again at some point,
Hmm.
that I need to smoke it,
Hmm.
because the effect will happen quicker and wear off faster. Because what I thought was going to throw me into a panic attack was like, I was like, oh God, how long is this is it going to get worse? How long is it going to go on? I'm ready for this to go away now.
Yeah.
So I haven't tried any more of them because it just, I don't know, maybe it's just not my thing.
Yeah, I did it once, and I used to take. I've taken a lot of CBD oil for my joints because I have like psoriatic arthritis. It's like a
Mhm.
autoimmune thing. It's weird. It's like I mostly it's just like a genetic thing. So I take shots. So I do CBD oil to help with that, like in my tongue, and that it helps a lot. It's like it's not like you get high. It's kind of like
Right.
a pain reliever type deal.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I mean the Delta, I've done it once. I wouldn't say I would be against it. I just my whole thing with that is I get paranoid about getting doing that, and then with my job, like I don't know how that works. So I
Yeah.
because I mean I used to like when I was in high school I smoked weed a little bit, but I
Mhm.
just would be so afraid like I would take one of those gummies and then I'd have to do a drug test or change jobs or
Oh
something.
gosh,
And then I'd
yes.
be like, oh shit, like I gotta explain this. So I mean that's probably not likely, but that's kind of where my head goes is,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I mean that most people that would always be in the back of their mind.
yeah,
I think I'm more worried, because I don't envision myself doing those gummies again.
yeah.
Um, I'm not saying I might not. I hope no cops are listening to this or anything. Don't want to get busted. I might try smoking it at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, I'm just at this point where I'm just going to keep myself clean as far as that's concerned for at
Sure.
least a while. But I'm more worried about me and alcohol because I used to didn't have, and I'm not saying I have a problem with it. I don't feel like I'm an alcoholic or anything, but there have been a few times, two or three times where I made mistakes.
Sure.
Uh, a lot of people saw me, unfortunately, have a big mistake during that Champagne and Bullets watch along
I didn't see that. I heard about it though.
whoa, holy crap.
I think I
Yeah.
might have saw like like I knew they were doing it. I don't remember, but I remember I didn't watch the stream. I just heard about it, but I didn't see it.
And I said, I will never do that again because number one, I was upset about something before the watch along started. And then, Dirk, bless your heart, it is not your fault. You were not holding a gun to my head and telling me to keep doing shots. But I totally do not hold Dirk responsible. But everybody thought it was funny that Dana was doing. Well, actually, I wasn't doing shots. I was doing shooters.
Oh no. Well,
And you guys know that shooters are quite a bit
oh,
bigger.
yikes.
That's what
Yeah.
I was doing. I had my one of my Evil Dead shooter glasses out, and
Hmm.
I started out just, I was like, I'm going to drink a couple because, like I said, I was pissed off about something, and I thought that would help. That never turns out well, guys. So don't don't do that.
No.
But then, Uncle Bill was on, and I'm not blaming Uncle Bill either.
Mm.
But he was on there because Wes had a family emergency that he had to take care of. So Uncle Bill came on there,
Hmm.
and he was kind of heading up the watch along stuff. And Steve kept looking at me and kept, the more I would drink, he, he was giving me that look like, Dana, maybe you better cut it back just a little
Right.
bit, but I wasn't paying attention. And so Uncle Bill was like, drink, 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 drink. And you know, the more you drink and the
Right.
more people seem to be having fun, guess what? You're going to do it more.
Sure.
And so I kept, I don't know how many damn shooter glasses I drank that night. And then Dirk, like I said, bless his heart, um, he kept giving Dead Pip money.
Super
Every,
chat.
he would give them super chats or whatever every time I would take a drink of the shooter. So,
Yeah.
like, Dirk, do you remember how much money you gave to them?
I like to drink sometimes like I don't drink a lot. I mean, Becca she likes wine and I drink beer occasionally. I like usually Christmas, like I probably will drink Christmas Eve. I might make eggnog or something cuz that's kind
Yeah,
of like a good reason to like drink like Jack or something to try it. I
right.
don't I don't drink a lot. I mean, I used to in college and high school, but it's for me it's just like occasionally now. I just don't I got too many other problems. I can't add that shit onto it. I have a hard enough time with life as is. I can't add drugs and alcohol in it. So for me, it's
Well,
just like a occasional type deal.
the last time I did it was during that watch along, and I really, as my mom would say, pulled a good one.
Mm.
Um, and I have, you know, even with a stomach virus, John, I have never been that sick in my entire life.
I bet.
I felt like I was gonna die. I think I was actually wanting to die because I was so sick. And
Yeah.
you know, I have never been that wasted in my life because, and I told everybody else about this. I said I was literally, I couldn't even like make it to the bedroom to lay
Wow.
down in the bed. When it kicked in, all I could do was go to the living room and lay on the couch. And the room wasn't just rocking and rolling, it was spinning.
Oh no.
And so I got sick at my stomach and had to learn, I couldn't walk upright at all. I
Oh no.
crawled from the couch to the bathroom to vomit.
Oh
And
no.
I did that 2 or 3 times, and, like, I was like, "Oh god, when is this gonna go away? When am I gonna feel better?" And I was supposed to see my dad the next day. He was coming to Louisville for a sale. Him and my uncle were coming for, a sale that they were having at the Kentucky Exposition Center,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Holy shit, I'm
Oh
gonna be
no.
bombed." And I'm supposed to go see my dad, and I didn't want my mom and dad knowing that I had gotten wasted the night before, and that's why I was sick.
Sure.
So I was feeling a little bit better the next morning, and I
Mhm.
made the mistake of eating Taco Bell like breakfast burrito type.
Oh no.
Steve brought
Oh
those
no.
home, and that's not a good thing to do after you've drank the night before too much. So I thought I was going to be okay, and I decided to call my mom because I was asking her what time would be a good time to go see my dad at the exposition center and stuff, and
Hmm.
to get my uncle's cell phone number. But anyway, I was talking to mom, and then all of a sudden, I felt like I was going to vomit again.
Oh
And I
no.
didn't want to tell her, Mom, I got drunk the night before. That's what, you don't want to tell your parents that.
Sure.
So I said, Mom, I'm going to be sick. And I laid the phone down, went to the bathroom, came back, and she was like, have you got the flu? Or it's like,
Yeah,
I was
they're
like,
just
I
like,
don't know.
yeah,
I ended up telling her later because I don't like to lie to my mom.
sure.
I don't like to lie to anybody. It gets to me if I do.
Mhm.
Um, but so I did go and see my dad, and thankfully I quit vomiting. So,
Mhm.
but Dad said to my mom, he talked to her on the phone that night, and um, he said, was Dana? I don't think Dana was feeling good. She was awfully quiet. She's usually not that quiet.
Oh, man, yeah,
Mm,
that's always a weird thing with parents. I understand how that is. I got caught
yeah.
in high school doing shit, so I know it's it's always an awkward conversation for sure. I've
So
most of my bad drinking stories or things involve wrestling, usually, oddly enough. So,
Uh,
watching wrestling. But
I had fun times drinking, if you can call them fun times, like early on when I started, I guess, social drinking. And I'm not trying to make CK and Uncle Bill or any of that, the Dead Pit crew, Dead Pit fans and stuff look bad.
sure.
But I think that's when I started drinking on a regular social basis, was, hanging out in hotel rooms with everybody and
Because damn
everybody else was
CK,
drinking.
bad influence. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It was peer pressure. No, it wasn't really. But I had fun times then, but I wasn't getting blasted. I wasn't getting where I was throwing up and stuff. When you get
Was
to the
there a show that was like, I remember something that I listened to once with them. It was either a Halloween or a Christmas party. They were filming something. It was for Dead Pit. They filmed that there. And I remember it was a bunch of people in like a house. And it was
now,
clear people were drinking. I don't remember when it
I'm
was.
wondering if that was when we all went to Jenny Wiley and there was a cabin that
Maybe.
that CK got, and there were a bunch of us there, and there was some drinking going
It was
on.
rowdy because I remember there was a lot of people because they were recording for the podcast because I was listening on it was back when I just
Mm.
listened to the audio only, and you could tell there was like a thing, and I was laughing because I was like, oh, they must be like some
That
party or
was
something.
that Halloween that we went to Jenny Wiley and stayed at the cabin. That was the time that, and yes, Steve had been drinking at it. Steve don't drink much anymore, thankfully,
Mhm.
which is a good thing. But back then he was drinking a little bit more. But I think he like power bombed Uncle Bill or something. And like I didn't see it because I was sitting in the living room area of this cabin, and a
Oh
bunch of
gosh.
them went back in one of the bedrooms. And I know this sounds gross, like there was some hanky panky going on, but that wasn't what was going on. But like a bunch of people went in there, and I heard a noise like it sounded like somebody was coming through the wall.
Oh
And that
gosh.
must have been when Steve power bombed Uncle Bill.
Wow, that's
And
awesome.
Uncle Bill was forever talking about that later, like, I think you might have broke my ribs, Steve.
That's funny.
But Dirk did say he believes it was $140 he
Oh gosh.
gave to Dead Pit. Um, you're going to have to harass CK, Dirk, because I never saw a penny of that. And I'm the one that had to suffer for that.
There's some guys on those chats lately. It's funny. When they do some of the lives, I don't remember who it is, but there's one guy who gets on there. He'll drop like $200 on super chats. I forget who it is.
It's like, where are they getting their money?
Yeah, he's done it a couple of times. It's one guy. It's not Dirk or any of us. I don't know who it
Uh,
is. I don't remember the name, but
I don't know. I'm gonna have to. I like to watch their lives that they do, but it just seems like between work and like doing my own stuff that I just don't get around to it as much as I would like to. I mean, I used to. I know this is talked into the. It's moved on into the Dead Pit Appreciation Society or something, but um, sometimes I get off on tangents, but
oh,
I
you're good.
used to, when I first started listening to Dead Pit, and I discovered them at the end of 2008.
Hmm.
Um, that whole like 2009, that's what I would do. I would go to work,
Hmm.
I'd come home or come to my parents' house,
Hmm.
and on Fridays, what I did was downloaded that new Dead Pit show, and I would sit there and I would listen to it, whether it was an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it didn't matter. I would sit there and listen to it. The Saturday nightmares, I was
Hmm.
almost always there. Um, and I think my mom got concerned about me for a while, there, because I don't think, other than horror movies, I don't think I was ever really into something as much as I was the whole Dead Pit thing.
Sure.
And she was like, well, she kept asking me, like, who are these people? And like, why are you so interested in it? And
Hmm.
why are you so wrapped up in it? And I think it was because I never felt like I belonged to anything.
Yeah.
Like when I was in high school and stuff, I always felt like an outsider.
Right.
Because I'm from a small town. There's not really a lot of horror fans there.
Hmm.
Um, and so when I discovered Dead Pit, and then I discovered, I struck up friendships with a lot of the different people, like Darren and
Hmm.
J Dog and Anthony and Steve, and and then of course me and Steve's friendship moved on to a romantic relationship, and we ended up getting married. Who I would have, when I first met Steve, I thought he was a nice guy and everything, but I never dreamed I'd be married to him in a few years. It's just not. I don't know. It's just not something you think about sometimes.
Sure.
It's just
Well,
something that happens, and you didn't expect it. I mean, I didn't think that poor Steve. I think he had a lot of rough patches as far as relationships, and I think he was starting to get burned out on it at the time that I don't know really what made him take notice of me. But I think it all started like that New Year's Eve where he was like, he kept wanting to call me and stuff. And I had a shitty cell phone at that time.
hmm.
And he's like, I'm going to call you. And of course, he was drinking too. He's
Hmm.
like, I'm going to call you. I was like, Steve, you can't, because, I got shitty cell phone service and a shitty cell phone. And he was like, I'm trying to get a hold of you. I can't get a hold of you, And so we would have to resort to doing Skype or something like
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah.
Um, and so, I mean, I could talk a little more about that, but I won't because it probably embarrass Steve. He'd be like, "Oh, don't talk about that." That was in my drinking days and all that.
Well,
But
I mean, they're such a, those guys are what they've started. It's a cool community. I mean,
mhm,
it's really fun and interesting. And it's like, um, it just, I just think their honesty and stuff is what it's so nice too. They don't
mhm,
care. They're just like honest about stuff. There's no bullshit, no shilling. It's just like
right,
what they think, and it's like it's kind of refreshing. But I know
yeah,
what you're saying. I mean, and especially growing up small towns and all, it's hard to, find it's hard to find groups of people that are into what you're into. I
mhm,
mean, just growing up where I did, even just finding the people who were into movies was like the hard. That was like, you know, that was a challenge within itself, let alone like
yes,
horror movies, just like people that were into movies, just that had that conscious thing of like we're into making them and we're into watching them and we're into like studying them. That's just
right,
so hard to find, especially in small areas, especially in the South,
yeah,
where life is all about hunting and football and all that shit.
exactly,
Like Varsity Blues, like that was my life growing up. It was like Varsity Blues, that movie, that was pretty much
yeah,
my high school,
yeah.
right?
Well,
So
yeah. I mean, good old Hancock County High School. It was all about sports.
yeah,
The jocks they ruled the school pretty much. And I'm not saying there weren't some nice guys that were jocks. I mean, I
yeah,
knew some nice guys. Um, but they literally got the best of everything.
sure,
Um, it seemed like, I used to get so angry because I was like, you've got some really smart people in my high school and they can't get scholarships and they don't have the money to go to college. But a lot of the jocks were like goof offs.
yeah,
You know, they didn't take their education seriously. But guess what? When it came time to hand out scholarships, they got all the damn scholarships.
right, yeah,
And it was
yeah,
because everybody was always concerned with sports. Let's make our sports guys happy. And it just it made me so angry. But football, basketball, all of that stuff was like, and a lot of my friends, my girlfriends that I hung out with, were, were so into that stuff and
Right.
so into the guys that played it. I remember one, I guess it was my senior year. Yeah, it was senior year. There was it was senior night and there was a home football game.
Hmm.
And I had completely no interest in going to this freaking football game. But
Hmm.
my best friend at the time was spending the night with me, and she's like, "Damn, we gotta go. It's senior night. We're seniors. Our boys are playing football. We gotta go."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "All right." I relented. I went,
Hmm.
but it was so cold that night because it was in October. Oh my God, it was cold. I don't think I've ever been so cold in my entire life. We were standing out there in the stands watching this football game, and to top it all off, we lost.
Yeah.
Um, shivering and trying to drink hot cocoa to stay warm and all that stuff. It starts sleeting, and
Oh
there goes
no.
the sleet in your hot cocoa. It's in your hair. It's you know everything. And I was like, you know, to heck with it being my senior year. It just wasn't that important. It
Right.
wasn't that important that I had to freeze my ass off.
Yeah, I
Uh,
played football some. I mean, my dad, he was a big athlete guy. He was into cars and football, and I'm more into cars, has always been more my thing. But I was into movies and stuff, and I played football some. I just didn't love it, but I mean,
mm,
I was big and all, so it was kind of like that's just the way it was back then. You had to. But yeah, I mean, I think the bond thing for me growing up in my town, I love movies, but I think I found a lot more people with like wrestling. That was kind of like the wrestling fans always seem to find each other, especially like in football, because you
yeah,
just like you're on a team and you figure out somebody like you're like, oh, you watch WCW, or you like
yeah,
it's like that's even like some of my closest friends now. Like I was thinking about like where did we start? Well, we started with wrestling. Like that's
yeah,
how we were like at some show or a band or a concert, and we end up in a corner somewhere, and we're just like start bullshitting about wrestling, and
yeah.
that seems like a constant thing in my life, even at 38. It's just like that's how I met my wife was wrestling. Is like I was listening to the Wrestling Observer, and they were
Uh,
talking about Tinder. So I downloaded the Tinder app, and then that's how I met Becca.
really
Yeah. So basically,
interesting.
wrestling is why. I mean, pretty much Hulk Hogan. That's why, like, I pretty much owe. Because if it wasn't for Hulk, I wouldn't have gotten into wrestling. If we're wrestling, it's kind of a weird thing with my life that's always been a bond with my relationships with my closest friends and stuff.
CK would love to hear me say this, I'm sure, because he already takes credit for a lot of people in the dead pit circles getting married. He
Hmm.
always like, but I honestly, I think if it wasn't for him and Uncle Bill,
Hmm.
I don't think that I ever would have met Steve, interacted with Steve. I mean, that
Hmm.
whole thing wouldn't have happened, and then I'd probably still be in my little bitty hometown, probably, I I like cats, but I'm not like one of those crazy cat ladies. I guess I'd be a crazy dog lady or something. I don't know.
Right.
Be living somewhere with about 150 dogs or something.
Sorry if you hear a beat, by the way. My dog,
Uh,
he's got allergies real
uh-huh.
bad. I've been trying to fix it with like shot pills. So he keeps shaking his ears. So if I beep, he
Oh,
stops. So
that's okay.
he
I'm
does
used
this
to
shit. He sits down and then he does this shit when I'm either on camera or I'm working. He starts like rocking around and snooping and looking for stuff. That's why
it. Yeah.
I was like, I knew he was about to do that, but yeah.
My dog's always one outside or something. Reggie, my pit bull mix, he wanted to go out right when I was getting ready to go on the stream, and I was like, Reggie, you're not doing this
Hmm.
because you just went out not very long ago, and he just looks at me so sad, like, you're not gonna let me out.
Yeah, he'll do that. He needs to go out, and then he'll do this thing where he goes out and he finds a stick, and
Yes.
he'll find the stick. He'll go to the door, and he'll wait for me to open the door. He'll drop the stick, wait for me to
Yeah.
open the door, then grab it and run in.
Drive it and run it. Yeah.
Like it's like a thief. Like he does that to like Becca all the time, and it's just like he's quite the fucking personality for an animal, but it's just dogs are
Oh
something
gosh.
else. I love him, but there are days where I just like wish I had a break with the dog. It's nonstop.
Well, I wouldn't take anything in the world for any of my 5 dogs, but
Yeah.
sometimes I think, "Oh my god, Dana, whatever possessed you to want 5 dogs?"
Oh, I can't imagine. Like I've joked with Becca about getting another doodle, and she's like, no, no. Because he's already just like he wants attention. She'll
Mhm.
lay down, she'll get in the recliner, he'll want in her lap when she has a blanket. He'll get off there, he'll come back. He always wants her. Like he's drawn to her. I'm just like the other person.
Right.
But he's just, yeah, I can't imagine 5 though. 5 would be if I had 5 of him, I he'd be like this house. He would like be running the house or
I
something.
don't think we would have a house if there were, like, 5 Reggies,
Yeah.
because, Reggie sometimes just, like, he'll just take off running. You know how they say dogs get the zoomies?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's what he does.
Mhm.
And he just gallops like he's like a dang horse. And sometimes he does it outside. He'll just when I let him out of his crate in the morning, because I have to put him in a crate
Yeah.
and I have to put one of my basset hounds in a crate to eat in the
Mhm.
morning,
Yeah.
because they like their food so well that they don't want anybody getting around them, like any other dogs getting around them.
Oh, they get like aggressive about like the
Yeah,
food thing. Yeah,
yeah.
sure.
So when I finally do let them out of their crates, Reggie just bolts for the back door, and then he'll just run. He goes running around the garage out there at just breakneck speed,
Hmm.
um, and he's just so excited. And I don't know. He is. He's like a racehorse. That's what he sounds like out there. It sounds like the Kentucky Derby out there with him running.
That's
But
hilarious. Yeah,
but I
there's something else. The dogs are just like it's a lot of people like when they talk about getting them. Like Becca's sister was going to get one, and her and her husband, and they were talking about, and I was like, if you can just get past the puppy stage, that's like
mm,
the worst part when you're like trying to potty train them and teach them stuff because they're going to poop and pee, and it's just like you got to
and
get around
chew
it.
on everything.
Yeah, it just takes time, and it depends on the breed, of what
Yeah,
you get. He's very like rambunctious and playful, so it just
yeah.
depends. Like he's not when he goes to the vet. He goes to the vet, he acts like an angel, which is fucking hilarious. He goes to the vet and they're like check his teeth and he's like smiling and like I'm like fucking come on.
Reggie doesn't mind the vet unless they want to stick something up his butt. If they want to do a fecal exam or check his temperature, he goes ape shit. And I don't
Yeah,
mean like mean, like he's gonna bite, but he just goes and he's just
I
wiggling, and
like
they
it.
can't hold him still. They can't do anything with him.
He responds to food. I can get most. That's how I teach him tricks and all his food. I can get him to do anything. If I get him like a piece of cheese or something,
Yeah.
I could probably get him to where he like barks on command if I spent long enough time with food. That's how he operates. That's the only way I taught him anything was food. He just doesn't, and he figured out if you don't have food, he doesn't have to do it.
Ah, yeah. No treats, and I'm not gonna do anything for you.
Labs are
Oh
like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
my mom had a black lab at one time,
Hmm.
and she was like that,
Yeah.
very stubborn
Hmm.
type
Yeah.
of
Oh,
dog.
definitely. Yeah. And they're very like, yeah, the lab part of him is like what makes him like want food all the time and beggar. And then the
Mhm.
poodle part of him is kind of like where he's always like wanting attention and like kind of rambunctious a little more.
Yeah,
But it's I don't know. I do love animals. I just think like I feel like I've had enough now to where I could give people some tips on what to avoid or what to deal with them to
I
help.
would tell people don't get 5. That's what I would say.
That is a lot, but I don't blame you. I mean, they're still your kids,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
understand.
now that I have them, I don't want anything to happen to them. I mean, I know eventually they're going to
Hmm.
pass away. I mean, me and Steve, we've only been married 9 years and we've already lost two of our dogs. We lost Sam after we had Sam a little over a year and he got sick. And, even though we took him to the vet and, they put IVs in him and did all that, I'm kind of convinced he had cancer, like stomach
Oh,
cancer or something like that.
sorry.
Because, yeah, I mean, it was hard on me, but it was unbelievably hard on Steve. Steve, I don't, well, Steve cried a lot when Linnea, our little weenie dog, passed away too. But
Yeah.
when Sam passed away kind of suddenly, uh, Steve just fell apart. I mean, I felt so bad for him, and I was having my own painful moments, but I felt like I should comfort him because he couldn't even. We brought Sam his body home from the vet, and I'm not trying to bum
No, I
anybody out
understand.
here,
It's
but
hard when you have like dogs that long. It's difficult.
right. And so I asked Steve, I said they're wanting to know, do we want to have him cremated or do we want to come get his body and bury it? Have
Yeah.
like a private burial thing. And so Steve and I decided at that time that we would bury him in the yard.
Hmm.
So we brought him home. They put him in a nice little box and all that. But Steve was so broken up that he could not bury the dog. My neighbor had to come over, and Steve could not even stand out there in the backyard. I stood out there,
Wow. Yeah.
but he was crying so hard that he just turned around and went in the house. He just could not. He could not take it.
That's hard.
Um, yeah, and we were both like messed up for over a week. Really messed up, and then still kind of, hurting. And we still hurt when we think about him. But we did decide to have Linnea cremated
Yeah.
because he said, if we move from this house, we're not going to be able to dig up Sam and take his bones or whatever, with us. We just can't do that. I
Right.
said, yeah, I realize that. He said, so any more of the dogs that pass away, we're having them cremated.
Yeah. I understand.
So Linnea is, at first when I thought about it, I was like, I don't want to cremate my dog. It kind of freaked me out a little bit. I want to
Sure.
be cremated when I die, but I couldn't wrap my head around the idea of doing that to my dog.
Yeah.
And, but her ashes are in a pretty little box that they put them in. They also took her little paw and made us a little mold of her
No.
paw, and it's there too. And
Yeah.
poor Steve there for about a week after we got her ashes back and the
Mhm.
little paw print mold.
Yeah.
Steve would touch the top of that box and he just cried. And I hope he doesn't get mad if he knows that I told this, but
I understand.
guys can cry too. To me,
Look,
there's nothing wrong with that.
I get it. Believe me, my wife and I, we've been through some shit, so I get
Mm,
it with law. I get
yeah,
it. You don't
yeah,
have to explain it to me. I
yeah.
totally understand it. Dogs are like your children. It's not,
Mm.
you just try your best to take care of them and all. So I get it. It's rough. I'm like I said, I'm trying to get his allergy shit fixed, and it's a
Bless his
pain.
heart.
It's a pain. Tennessee allergies suck, and I don't know if it's like food allergies or if it's air. So I'm like trying these shots, and then he's been on this pill. It's not like horrible. It's just like it gets to him later at night, and he shakes and scratches. It's just doodles are just like that too. With their doodles, they don't shed, but it's almost like so they're hypoallergenic, which means you don't get allergies from them, but it's almost like he gets all the allergies. He gets allergies. So,
well, I think Reggie's got allergies now because he does this thing, especially when he comes in from outside, and he'll just like that, like that little cough.
As long as it's not a goose hack. The goose hack is so like if you ever hear him goose hack, which it's literally it sounds like a goose hacking. That's Bordetella. That's just the kennel cough, which is fixable. It's just like a cold.
Yeah, Reggie did have kennel cough when we first adopted him, and they gave us medicine with it. And he had a horrible cough whenever we first got him. Bless his heart.
It's kind of hilarious when you hear it. It's not funny, but like he got it from the border one time, and it literally sounds like a goose hacking. Like I was laughing. I was like, "This is so dead on what this is." And they give him like a shot. I mean, it's not. It's kind of like us getting a cold type deal.
Yeah.
So
I think we had to give Reggie pills for about a week or something like that, and then he was better. But Steve would look at me when he would cough. He'd be like, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "I know, Steve. You probably never heard that before, but my dad raised beagle hounds, so I knew about a lot of different things. From kennel cough to worse things like parvo. Dad had a beagle hound get parvo, and oh my gosh, it's bad.
The reverse sneezing thing happens too with dogs sometimes where they get those fits.
Now, my weenie dogs have always done that, and Darcy, she's mostly weenie dog, but we think she's got a little bit of Chihuahua in her. She does that too.
Yeah, it's hard. It's sometimes with animal. I feel like I've learned so much about that stuff with him, like diagnosing it, because he had pancreatitis earlier this year, and it was like he wasn't eating, he didn't want to drink, he wasn't taking. It scared the hell out of me because I knew when he wasn't taking peanut butter, I was like, oh fuck, this is
something's wrong when that.
He was like turning his nose up, but they fixed it. He just had to get he had to get hydrated, and then he had antibiotics. He was fine, but it just a lot of that stuff it just comes on, and you have to just. What I've learned with animals is like if they're eating, drinking, playing, and pooping, they're fine.
Exactly.
If they're going to the bathroom and they're eating or playing, you're fine. If they're not doing those things, that's when you gotta worry, right? It's real simple with animals, like diagnosing them. Sometimes just knowing what to look for. So
now Brandon, our old man Basset Hound, we think he's got. I think it's early stages, but doggy dementia. And we've got him on some Anapril now, which is the preferred medication for dementia in dogs. So, but he does the thing where he just goes in a circle. He will walk literally from one room to the other, and then he'll lay down. And I think it's like he forgets how long he's been laying down, and in his mind, he thinks he's been laying down a long time. And he gets up and he does the whole thing again. And I try to be understanding because bless his heart, it's not his fault that his mind is not what it once was. But sometimes I just get so tired of watching him pace like that, and I'm like, Brandon, I wish you would just lay down, buddy.
Yeah.
Because I'll be trying to watch a movie and hear click, 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 click on the floor. And we've got that, it's not real hardwood, but the vinyl flooring that looks like hardwood. And it's not like the carpet anymore. You can just hear him. You can hear him coming through the hall. You can hear him walking through the living room.
Yeah.
And Steve has gotten so aggravated, he just shuts the door of the bedroom sometimes because he says, I can't stand here. And Brandon will leave the bedroom, go out in the hallway, and I hear that click, 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 click. And then he
Oh,
comes back and he's on carpet for a while. Then he goes back out and he's clicking again on the floor. I said, I know, Steve, but
yeah.
you know, I I said, what can we do but just try to soothe him as much as we can and let him live out the rest of his life. I'm not gonna put the dog to sleep because he's,
Sure.
you know, I
Yeah,
can't
it's
do
just like people. It's they get older, and that kind of stuff can happen. They can have just like people, like an old man or a woman.
that.
You have to that kind of yeah, for sure.
Hey, Blair. Blair is in here. And guys, I promise we're going to talk about Body Double here in just a second, but I tend to get off
Oh, you're
on
good.
tangents. Blair says dogs are definitely part of the family. Hey, Dana. Yes, they are definitely part of the family. So, John, before we move to Body Double, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up about Scarface?
Not really. I mean, I just think it's obviously, I mean, it's a classic. It's one of the best
Mhm.
ever. I mean, it's just such a. I think it's De Palma's best movie end to end. I
Mhm.
think even that ending shot, when it shows him and the guy comes behind with a shotgun and
Yeah.
hits him, and then it shows the world is yours. Like it
Yeah.
zooms out. I mean, I just think it's just a masterful movie. It's almost like a cautionary tale in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. Um, yeah, I just think it's such a great movie, and I just think of all his movies, it's like I don't know, it's the one that like really stands out to me is like
Yeah.
something he just I don't know, there's something very unique about it. Um, and it's hard to kind of put it in a genre. It is a gangster movie,
Mhm.
but it's not just a gangster movie.
No.
It's not just that. So yeah,
Yeah, there's so many different pieces to this movie,
yeah,
and layers. Again, it's a movie, like I've said about some of these other movies, that's like an onion. You can just keep peeling away layers and finding another layer underneath. Um, and I think that's what makes a great movie is if a movie is designed that way.
yeah,
And De Palma is able to do that expertly,
yeah.
in a way that not a whole lot of directors can pull off. And like you said, John, earlier, even though Tarantino's a great director in his own right, and I love his movies,
Yeah.
I think he, as well as a lot of other directors, wish they could make a De Palma type of film.
Hmm.
They wish they could design a film that way.
Yeah.
Um, but I just think De Palma is just one of those one in a million guys. I I don't I don't really think his particular style can be duplicated. Um,
Not
People
really. I
can
mean,
try.
it's so unique, and I just and this movie, it's Scarface especially is one of those movies to where when you watch his filmography, and like you go through it and you see like Phantom of the Paradise and Sisters and Carrie and then Blowout and Dress to Kill, and then you get to this movie. In a way, it is kind of surprising that he would do this movie
Yeah,
because it doesn't really go with that flow of like what he's doing. Like Body Double kind of goes back to that flow of
yeah.
what he's doing, right? The noir
Hmm.
mystery type thing. But this is just like it's like he just takes like a total 180 with like what he's trying to do. And I just
Yeah,
love that. I always like when filmmakers do that and they try to, you know, they kind of defy expectations. Like you think this is the movie they're going to make and they don't
yeah.
make that kind of movie.
Exactly. And see, nobody could ever pigeonhole De Palma and
No.
say he's this type of director. He only makes these types of films because look at his filmography.
Yeah.
It's essentially it's all over the place. He's not
Definitely.
he's not just horror.
Mm.
He's not just like a suspense thriller giallo type.
Mm.
He's not just like we said about this, like an action oriented gangster movie type of director.
Mm-mm.
He's not even a um, I guess a comedy, like some of those hippie type of movies he made early on,
Hmm.
or even like the home movies
Yeah.
film that he made with Keith Gordon and Nancy Allen. Um, that was a little bit of a. I thought that was a big departure
Yeah.
for De Palma. I don't think he's ever made another movie like that. Home movies.
I haven't
Um,
seen that, but I've heard about it.
it's interesting. I think you would enjoy it, John. I think a lot of you guys in here in the chat that like a lot of other De Palma movies would enjoy it, but just don't be expecting it to be in the same vein as a lot of this other stuff that I've been talking about in these streams about De Palma. It's very different from the other films that I've been discussing.
Sure.
Um, but oh, the mayor's in here. Hey, mayor, you say you just ordered the 4K of Dress to Kill from the Kino Lorber Winter Wonderland sale. I will say, in my
Nice.
opinion, that Dress to Kill 4K looks awesome, and I think you made a good choice
I do
on
want that one. I saw that, and yeah, I saw that in the sale, and I was like, I'd like to get that movie. It's not my favorite of his, but I really do think it's a great movie.
that. Yeah.
I'm with you though. The whole the whole Angie Dickinson, just like it's something about all that is just like so. I don't know. I think like I'm comparing it too much to his other movies, but that just there are parts of that movie that are just so kind of like silly to me. That's just it's like it's parts
Well,
of it are brilliant and then parts of it are just really
yeah,
silly.
exactly. I just don't. I'm not saying Angie Dickinson doesn't have her place in movies, but I just
Yeah.
think that this was the wrong role for her.
Yeah.
Now I know Darren disagrees with me on that, and I know some other people disagree with me on that. They think Angie Dickinson's great in the role, but the whole like oversexed older woman thing, I don't
Yeah.
know. I that just did not work for me. And like the idea that a woman, and I'm sure there's women like that in real life, that aren't getting what they want at home and got to
Right.
go somewhere else to get it. But in Dress to Kill, it was so blatant and so overt. Her getting into the taxi with a guy that she just saw in the museum, and like she just cannot contain herself.
Yeah,
A
and there
guy's
were
taking her underwear off, and everything is just like I don't know,
yeah,
just
there were
something
things in
off.
that. That's why like Blowout to me was so much better. It's not the same movie, but I just way
Mm,
prefer Blowout. And I think the one thing like if you take something like Body Double, there's nothing to me that's wasted in Body Double. Like when I look at the plot
mhm.
and the story, everything in that movie has sort of a purpose, even the weird stuff. Like when you realize what happens, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's why this and that's why that. It has. There are things in Dress to Kill that happen that I'm just like when she reads the test, like when she sleeps with a guy and she's got the STD, and it's like, what really does that? I mean, I get it. It's basically saying
Mhm.
she's promiscuous, but they're just things in that movie to me that are just like they don't really have they're not necessary to the plot at all. And it's
Mhm.
just kind of like I don't know.
I
I
just always laugh at that scene because I guess you're not really supposed to laugh at it, but I do because I'm like,
yeah.
haha, that's what you get.
Yeah, and like you said, like and when she's like that music when she's walking around, just
Mm,
something about that movie. I don't know. I I do like it. I do think it's good, but
mm.
and I wanted to love it, but when I finally watched it, I just was kind of I don't know. I was a little too critical of some of the stuff in it,
I
but
think the
you know,
I think the best scenes with Angie Dickinson are when she's talking to Keith Gordon.
yeah,
When they're interacting, it's like a mother and son relationship. It seems normal. It seems healthy, and like something that you would really see in real life. I just can't get behind the whole, like I said, oversexed older woman thing. That I mean, I just think of her as a nympho, because I mean, you see her having sex with her husband,
Right. Yeah,
And
and the whole twist thing is kind of it is good. It's a good
mm,
twist, but I will say before I had even seen the movie, I had seen the clips of that movie because I had seen it on like
mm,
Terror in the Isles and all, and it was
right.
pretty obvious who I was seeing in those clips. Like I even when I was a kid, I remember. I don't know if I want to give spoilers on it, but it's just like
Uh,
I would see the killer, and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, that's obviously you know." Like I wasn't surprised by that at all because it just I don't know if
mm.
it's just the way it just seemed kind of obvious. Like there was not
And
like a lot.
I wonder if De Palma wanted it to be obvious.
Does that make sense? I don't want to give spoilers.
Mhm.
I just that reveal wasn't very shocking to me.
Right.
But
And maybe it was thinly veiled,
yeah.
and maybe De Palma wanted some people to say, "Aha, I know who that is," you
Now,
know?
in Body Double, on the other hand, I don't think watching that the first time you're gonna figure out that exact thing at the end of that movie until you see it.
No, and
I
it
wouldn't
did,
think.
and I had forgotten the
Yeah.
twist of that one.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Holy crap,"
Yeah.
So that's a good segue to move into Body Double because I can just tell me and John both are wanting to talk about this movie. So we'll just segue right into Body Double.
Hmm.
And um I want to give it away, but I really don't want to give it away because there's, I know, I don't know if Darren is still in here. I haven't seen him put anything in the chat there for a while, but I
Yeah.
know that um, I can't remember if he said he didn't get to watch it or rewatch it, um, but
I think he said he hadn't rewatched it
hadn't
lately.
rewatched it. Okay. So the mayor says, I haven't seen Body Double in forever.
Why do you
So
think this movie is like not why is this movie not discussed much anymore? Like it's almost like this movie kind of is the De Palma film that nobody really talks about, and
yeah,
I'm
the
really surprised
forgotten De Palma film. Yeah.
because it's so like just from the cinematography, I mean, it's fucking brilliant. Like some of the
Hmm.
shots in this movie are like, golly, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I that was the first thing that hit me rewatching it. I was like, man, this is like beautiful, just the way he shot this movie.
Yes, it is a very beautifully shot film. And John, you may disagree with me. Some of you guys in the chat may disagree, but I feel like Body Double definitely has a Jallo element
Yeah,
to it.
yeah, for sure.
The, you know,
I didn't think about that, but it really does. Yeah.
seeing the killer in the shadows,
Hmm. Definitely.
having the reveal of the killer,
Hmm.
like some people might say it's a Scooby Doo type of thing,
I
but
like that. To see the cheesiness in this movie, I liked it. I thought it worked.
uh,
It was almost like the quirkiness is what makes this movie so special. Is like it's almost like the way he's filming with the camera.
mm-hmm.
It's a character. Like
Yes.
the choices he makes with the camera is like a character itself in this
Mm,
movie. And I actually think, unlike Dress to Kill, this actually works what he's doing with that kind of stuff.
mhm.
But sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Um, but I will say that the killings in here in this movie are not necessarily just standard slashing
Right.
killings. Um, and John probably knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, right.
The one scene with the dog and everything, and the weapon of choice
Yeah.
in that scene, it's just like it almost seems like he pulled it out of Scarface or something. It's like, let's
Yeah.
pull the chainsaw scene out of Scarface and kind of mix it up a little bit and put it in this movie.
Yeah, it's
Um,
probably like back to back filming, I would think. He
I
probably
would
went
think
from one to
so
the
too.
other.
Yeah.
The,
Um, Something else that was shared in both movies was the actor Greg Henry, which
yes.
I don't know how many of you guys in the chat know who Greg Henry is, but if you've seen, is it Just Before Dawn that he's in, right?
So I'm gonna blow your mind with this. Do you know
Uh,
what he was in the past few years? He's in Guardians of the Galaxy.
is it now?
He's Star-Lord's dad, or he's Star-Lord's grandfather. So at the very beginning of Guardians, he's the guy when Star-Lord's like listen to tape
Okay.
and he's like, put that away. And then in the second one, he's like a little cameo in it. Yeah,
Okay.
because he was
Wow.
Star-Lord's mom's dad.
Okay.
Because that was the first thing I thought when I saw Guardians. Is I was like, holy shit, it's the guy from Body Double. He's just older.
But I really like Greg Henry. I think he's an unassuming actor,
Yeah.
but he does such a good job. He's so subtle that you almost don't realize what a great actor he is.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I didn't even like when I was watching him in Body Double. And like I said, it'd been a few years since I had last watched Body Double. So I'd almost completely forgotten the plot and all that stuff. So when Greg Henry showed up in it, I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah.
I
Familiar
know that
face.
guy because, yeah, he has a face that you don't easily forget.
He was in
And,
Payback too with Mel Gibson,
oh, yeah.
which I used to love that movie. It's like a gangster crime type movie.
Hmm.
But yeah.
And like, so he has more of a job to do in Body Double than he does Scarface, because Scarface, I think he might have been uncredited in Scarface.
Who was he in? Because I'm trying to remember what did he do in Scarface? Because it's been a while.
Okay, so one of the later scenes, almost near the end, where he has another meeting with that Sosa guy.
Yes, I'm remembering this now.
Yeah, and all those guys, he introduced Tony to all these different guys, and Greg
Yeah.
Henry was one of those guys. But I could not find Greg Henry's name in the credits, and I'm like, I know that was Greg Henry.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if it was uncredited.
He doesn't do a lot of work now,
Hmm.
and I think that's the thing about him is he was a lot of the movies he was in were so long ago. I think that's probably why he didn't get much attention in Guardians of the Galaxy because he's kind of like a
Right.
forgotten character actor in a way. Like some of those guys, they just go away and then you just see them out of nowhere and you forget. Like even the main guy, what's his name, Craig Wesson.
Craig Wasson or what? Yeah.
Yeah, he was in this and he was in what was it, Ghost Story?
He was in
Maybe.
Ghost Story. He was in Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yes, that's
He
right.
was
He was
in
great.
a Klaus Kinski movie, Schizoid. Was it Schizoid? Or I always get Schizo and Schizoid confused. But the
Yeah,
one where somebody was using the shears to kill these women that were in a.
Schizoid. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I always get, I think it's Schizo or Schizoid because there's two different movies. But this is the one with Klaus Kinski being a therapist,
Mhm.
and somebody is killing these women off that are in this therapy group. And so Craig Wasson is in that movie as well.
Funny enough, a job I had years ago when I lived in Mississippi, one of my boss's boss, his name was Craig.
Uh huh.
He's from Colorado. He used to come down, and I remember it's really weird because like I watched Ghost Story, and then I
Hmm.
met this guy, and he looks just like Craig White. He looked just like him.
Wow.
And I was kind of like thrown off by it because I remember the next day I saw him and I kept looking at him. And for
Hmm.
like a second, I was like, is he related? I was
Right.
like, it was like freaking me out for a while. And I was like, no, he's just like he's just one of the, it's like one of those situations where you see somebody and they just look exactly like them.
Yeah,
And
they say everybody has a twin, so.
yeah, I was doing the whole Marty McFly thing in the diner where I'm looking at him and he's like, what are you looking at? You know?
But uh, Body Double, to me though, is again De Palma is a chameleon director. That's what that's what he is. You cannot pigeonhole or pin this guy down to one type of film because he's made too many different types of films.
Yeah.
And Body Double's no exception because we start out with seeing Craig Wasson's character.
Mhm.
He's an actor in a movie, and Dennis Franz is in this movie too as
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
director of the film. And Craig Wasson is playing a vampire. And
Yes.
this seems like a really schlocky, low budget horror movie.
Mhm.
And we find out over time that Craig Wasson's character of Jake is um, claustrophobic. And he talks about at one point it's some kind of acting school exercise,
Yeah.
and you find out that when he was young he was playing a game. I think they called it sardines or sardine or something like that. It's
Yeah.
kind of like hide and seek.
Yeah.
So he ends up hiding in a place that is very closed in.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, it's like those childhood terrors keep coming back and haunting him. And so this affects him in a lot of ways. It affects him in this movie because they have him closed up in a coffin because he's supposed to be a vampire, and he just freezes. He can't move, he can't talk, he can't do anything. And they have to get him out of the coffin really quickly. So he ends up later on in the film getting fired from this acting job. He
Mhm.
finds out Dennis Franz's character has fired him because of his phobia, because of the claustrophobia.
Did
And
you think that was panic attacks at first? Ever since I've seen this movie a lot,
it did seem like it,
I
yeah.
kept feeling like he just had like bad panic attacks, but I guess it could be just claustrophobia. I guess that's
Mhm.
I don't know.
I
That's
mean,
what I was thinking of.
I suffer from panic attacks, and I could definitely see that as
Yeah.
as being, um, I guess, an unmedicated
Mhm.
person with panic attacks because they are panic attacks. As somebody that has had them, um, are very debilitating. You literally cannot do it. Your heart's beating out of your chest. Your breathing is very labored,
Mhm.
and it's an unreasonable, terrifying feeling that you really can't explain to anybody. For instance, I hate to get off on myself, but me and Steve were recently watching the new Top Gun movie, Maverick.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there calmly watching the movie and enjoying it.
Mhm.
And it's somewhere along the way, I don't know really what set it off. Steve thinks maybe it was some of the loud sounds in it of the planes and stuff that set me off. But I just got really scared and nervous all of a sudden. And
Mhm.
I had to get up and go take one of my hydroxyzines that I take for panic attacks. If I hadn't, I
Yeah.
think I would have got into a full blown attack.
Oh
So,
no.
um, and that all I was doing was watching a movie. I was
Yeah.
merely watching a movie. And it's hard for a lot of people to understand about panic attacks unless they've actually had them or they know somebody that has had them. Otherwise, people tend to think, "Oh, you're full of shit." Um,
Yeah, I kind of thought this was sort of progressive in ways because of this
mm,
movie, because Becca's had that before, and that was what I thought today. I was like, wow, this is kind of like forward thinking with that kind of stuff and how mental health and, like you said, people dismiss that stuff. Even like the
oh,
director, like he's dismissive, but it's like a real thing. It's like when it happens, I mean, you just lock up sometimes, right? So
yeah, and the awful thought of, hey, I could get fired from a job because I have panic attacks, and it's not. You
right,
can't really, when you're in the throes of a panic attack, there's really nothing that you can do,
no,
which is why I take my medication before, and I'm thankful for the medication. I take my medication now before it gets really bad.
hmm
Um, So yeah, I could definitely see the panic attack aspect to Craig Watson's character.
Hmm.
But this poor guy, things go from bad to worse for this guy
Yeah.
because he has the attack on the set of this movie.
Yeah.
Then he's thinking, well, I'll go home and I'll see my girlfriend, and everything will be all good. It'll be better.
Hmm.
So he goes home and thinking he's gonna, have a relaxing evening with his girlfriend. And he can hear, this setup's been done, not in the way that De Palma sets it up,
Yeah.
but this setup has been done in a lot of other movies
Sure.
where the man thinks he's got a good relationship with this woman, that everything's going fine.
Hmm.
Comes home, he hears laughing or something going on in another room. And so we're literally following Craig Wasson through the house.
Hmm.
And it's almost like he's in a maze or something. It's like, and we're getting more and more nervous because we already know he's went through a bad deal already. And it's like,
Yeah.
and I had forgotten all about this scene, but as he was going through the house and I'm rewatching this again, I'm feeling like I am him as
Right.
we're going through this together. And I'm like, oh no, no, no. She's screwing around on him. I know that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But then I was like, whoa,
And
because
leaving the dog unattended.
yeah,
The dog's just hanging out. Like, poor dog.
and I know Barbara Crampton is not shy about doing nudity, but
God, I
this
know.
this scene was
That's like a
even
requirement
more
for her in like every
explicit.
movie. I swear. I
Well,
like Barbara Crampton, but she's always got to show her boobs in like every role, doesn't she?
yeah, and she was showing a little bit more than her boobs in the shot. It's a quick
Yeah.
shot,
Hmm.
but and guys, I'm not trying to be vulgar, but she's riding this guy like there's no tomorrow. And I'm like, holy shit. Because I'd forgot, like I said, I'd forgotten about this scene. I'd
Yeah.
forgotten that Barbara Crampton was in it.
Hmm.
And,
Same. I didn't think about it.
and I was like, and I even asked Steve today, I said, did you remember that Barbara Crampton was in the beginning of Body Double? And he said, no, he said, I didn't remember that either. So, um, but yeah, so he got the double whammy. He had the
Yeah.
bad day at work. It's almost like having a bad day at the office and then coming home and finding out that your wife or girlfriend's screwing around on you.
Hmm.
So then he ends up going to the bar and you know, he keeps wanting the guy to pour him drinks, and he has that whole exchange with the bartender, where the bartender's like, at first he's like, but you quit drinking. And he's like, just give me another drink. And then it gets to the point where he says, um, you're the bartender, keep the fucking glass full.
Right.
And the guy gets really mad at that point. He puts down the bottle and he says, you pour your own glass. You keep it filled. I'm not doing this anymore. You're just abusing the hell out of me, basically. So,
Hmm.
and then he backs off and he says, I'm sorry, don't pay attention to me. I've had a horrible day and all of that. So then he's trying to find other acting jobs and stuff like that. And that's where he gets introduced to Greg Henry's character.
Yeah.
And at first, you think Greg Henry's character is, he's on the level. He's a good guy. He wants to help out a buddy, a fellow actor, and all that. So, because uh, Barbara Crampton's character of Carol owns the house or that they live in, guess what? Craig Watson's out on his ass, so he's got to find a place to live. So Greg Henry just, seems to pop up out of thin air and says, "Hey, man, I'm house sitting for this dude. but I've got to go out of town. So how would you like to house sit? It's this really incredible place. And all you got to do basically is keep the plants watered. And so, of course, Craig Wasson, the character of Jake, he jumps at that.
Yeah.
So Greg Henry takes him, shows him the place, and it is a really unique and incredible house.
It's like a UFO. It's like way up with the stairs. I remembered it and I watched it again and I was like, wow, this house is so weird. Like,
Yeah.
that's part of the cool thing about this movie is like some of the set designs and the stuff he used, you know.
But the other thing about this is it has an added bonus, which Greg Henry shows him. Like there's a not really a telescope, but kind of like it. It's kind of like those things in Maniac is what I'm thinking of, where you see the killer looking through these little, almost like binoculars,
Yeah.
and looking at and watching people. So that's what it's kind of like. I'm kind of reminded of the movie 10. I don't know how many of you guys have seen 10 with Bo Derek and
Yeah.
Dudley Moore, but when Dudley Moore is watching his neighbor
Yeah.
across the way, and the guy is like having sex with all kinds of different girls and stuff. So that kind of is what it reminds me of when Craig Wasson is introduced to the neighbor across the way, and Greg Henry's kind of telling, yeah, she does this every night. So he ends up becoming obsessed with this woman. And he's got to meet her, and he ends up meeting the woman that lives in this house.
Yeah.
But guys, if you have not seen Body Double, you might want to plug your ears here for a little bit or walk away, because I'm going to give something away. So
the one thing about this too, watching this movie again, is when you know the story, you see it very differently. Like later, like, because that I was watching this knowing what's happening, and I see everything. I'm like, oh wow, yeah. I'm noticing things I didn't see the first time. I'm like, oh, okay, I see why they're doing this. I see why he's there. Like, you're just seeing all this sort of at a different lens. Because this, the one thing that occurred to me today watching this, I don't know why it never did. This is like his love letter to Rear Window. This is like his sleazy version of Rear Window.
Yes, a sleazy version of it. Yes.
And I never thought about that. And I'm just like, this has got to be what he's going for, because it's like very similar. It's some of those beats, like the voyeur and the watching. And he's like, something's happening and he's trying to, like, sorry, I'm not trying to be.
That is okay. I like that.
Yeah.
But the tagline for this movie is something to the effect of, what you see is not always what is real, or something to that effect, or you can't believe what you're seeing. And it really comes to pass with this movie, because for a long time in the movie, Craig Wasson's character thinks he's seeing the woman that lives there. The beautiful dark-headed stranger, pretty much, is the one that's doing that sexy dance every night.
Yeah.
But it's not. It turns out to be Melanie Griffith's character, an adult film star named Holly Body, who was hired by the woman's husband that actually lives in this house across the way. And guys, here, big stinger, big shocker. Greg Henry is the husband of this dark-headed, beautiful stranger. And Greg Henry has set all this up just so he can off his wife and take the heat off of himself by putting Craig Watson's character into the mix and getting him all wrapped up in this. And you also have an adult film element with Melanie Griffith's character
Mm-hmm.
of Holly Body. And then it gets extra sleazy when Craig Watson starts getting mixed up into the adult film stuff. And it is like he's so out of place in this, but it's so great.
Yeah, that
Um,
whole Frankie Goes to Hollywood when he's walking through, that's just like
exactly.
so great. The way they shot that and all. Yeah, it's like the one thing I did forget too. I remembered most of the movie, but
Hmm.
the fake out of her in the window when it's her and
Yeah.
it's not Gloria, it's Melanie Griffith.
Yes.
Um, I forgot that because when I was watching it again today, that was my first thought was like, why is she doing that in the window? I was
Yeah.
like, that makes no sense. And then later on, I was like, oh, fuck, that's why, because she was tired to do that.
Yeah.
And then, like, the whole thing, and I was also thinking, like, now, why does he get obsessed with Melanie Griffith? I can't remember. And then I was like, oh, he has to, because he has to get her back there so he can kind of explain to her that he knows. It's like all those things, like, started connecting back in my head. That's kind of what I was talking
Mhm.
about earlier. Is like, there's nothing in this movie that's, like, wasted. It's
No.
like he thought this whole thing through. Even if I mean, it's weird. There are some things in this movie that are just kind of weird, but it's not random. It's not.
Mhm.
There's nothing like that's just like you could take that out. I feel like every little thing in the movie, it's like connects in some way. You know.
Right. And again, Greg Henry is so subtle about this. This is a subtle evil. He's an evil guy,
Yeah.
and you don't like him when you
Yeah.
find out how evil he is, but it's so damn subtle.
Yes. Yes.
And and he's like, even when he's threatening to bury both Craig Wasson and Melanie Griffith alive, when he and we're thinking, oh my God, is Craig Wasson going to be able to escape from this, or is he
Hmm.
going to freeze up like he did when he was on the movie set? Because here he's getting dirt thrown in his face. Do we at one point I was thinking, is he going to just freeze up and allow himself to be buried alive?
Right.
Or is he going to be able to come out of this and save both himself and Melanie Griffin's character?
Yeah.
Um, and it was very tense there for a little bit. Because I did, even though I like Greg Henry as an actor, I did not want this character to win.
No.
I did not want him to win. And to go back to Scarface a little bit, his character near the end of Scarface was another subtle evil because
Sleazeball.
yeah, he was not a good guy by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
Um, but he plays it so well.
Well, he's
So
very
well.
much looking for. You realize at the beginning of this movie that he's hunting for a sucker. He's looking for somebody who's
Yep.
like in the right situation, like exactly. He's like looking exactly for this person to put in this scenario, and it's yeah, the whole one thing I thought about that was kind of interesting, and I don't want to give too much credence to this, like it's
Mhm.
meant to be a thing with the movie, but I noticed the whole through line of like he sees the murder happen, he sees
Mhm.
the Indian, he sees all this stuff, but like Melanie Griffith never sees it, or she
Right.
never like at the end she's like, what are you talking about? I'm in a hole, like you creep, like
Exactly.
it's like there is like a weird I don't, and this might just be me like going off on a mental tangent, but like there is this weird thing with it where you kind of wonder if there's things that De Palma's trying to say, like if he's trying to
Mhm.
say like maybe this isn't what you think you're seeing, even at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe not. I just thought that was interesting how even at the end, like he sees all this stuff, and then she's like, "I only see you. You're a creep." Like it's like, how did he finally get her to believe all this stuff, right? Because even the
Right.
cops, like, yeah, sure, you're the only one that saw this, you know.
Mhm.
Maybe that's just the point is like that they think he's crazy. Like the situation has presented that way, and
And,
Greg Henry's accomplished his job. Maybe
and then
that's
you almost wonder. You almost wonder if it's like the setup in Dress to Kill with Nancy Allen and Dennis Franz,
yeah,
where Dennis Franz is kind of, at one point it seems like he's trying to pin it all on Nancy Allen's character.
yeah,
It, like, especially Angie Dickinson's death in the elevator.
yeah,
But then as the movie moves along, it's like, oh, we were just kind of setting you up for this so that we could get the bad guy,
yeah,
the real killer. You know,
yeah.
that's why I was so shitty to you at the near the beginning. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that now. I remember watching that movie and thinking, wow, they are so passe about this. I remember because they were like, yeah, we were just setting you up. It's no big deal. We got him. But it's like, you almost got him killed.
so,
It
so
dressed to
I'm
kill. I remember that.
so I'm wondering if De Palma was kind of trying to do that again with Body Double, with setting Craig Watson's character up twice.
Yeah.
Greg Henry was setting him up. Well, maybe the cops were setting him up too,
Maybe.
so that they could get the real bad guy.
Yeah.
Um, with the world may never know. But unless somebody was to point blank ask De Palma, and he was willing to go that extra mile and reveal that.
The only
Um,
thing in the movie that doesn't work for me
mhm.
that I just still don't quite understand. I kind of understand it, but I kind of don't. You probably can guess is the scene when they're at the tunnel and he finally meets Gloria.
Uh-huh.
And they just in the world, it's a cool shot, it's like the circular camera shot where they're kissing and it's like
Right.
going around and around. Like it's a cool shot. I get it, he kind of likes her, but like in the same sense, I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
why
exactly.
would she just go for that? Like, why would that just happen? That was the only point in the movie where I'm like, I feel like this is a little absurd. This part right here,
Yeah,
yeah,
I did feel that too, John. And I was like, and no offense to Craig Watson or
yeah,
anything, it's not like he's an ugly guy, but it's like, why would this gorgeous woman be passionate about Craig Watson? I just don't.
yeah,
I don't get it.
yeah. I was following you, but it's not me. But go ahead and kiss me. It's like it's just that was a
Yeah.
little. But I mean, I could understand that. Like he's went through so much and he's like lonely and desperate and he probably
Mhm.
kind of got a little bit fascinated with her infatuated because later on
Yeah.
when he's with Holly in the
Mhm.
movie within the movie, it goes back to that where he's thinking of her. So I guess maybe he was like infatuated, but it was just kind of
Yeah.
that was the only thing in the movie when I think about it. I'm just like, I don't know that it works, but it also is kind of silly.
Yeah.
Maybe
Little.
I don't know.
But I think De Palma does put a little absurdity in all of his films.
Sure.
Um, and it works for some people, and some people are like, yeah, I really don't like that.
Yeah.
Um, in Carrie, it was the sped up scene where they're talking like they've been breathing
Yes.
helium. Some people don't like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
some people don't like we were talking about the Angie Dickinson absurdity in Dress to Kill.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't really care for in Blowout the the airhead quality to Nancy Allen's character
Yeah.
on that. That sort of got on my nerves. And
Like
other
when they're sitting down at the table and they're talking in like the little
mm,
restaurant. Yeah. Yeah.
she just seems a little bit too
Yeah.
space cadet for
She's
me.
kind of like Betty Boop a little bit in that.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh, really? Yeah, she's
Yeah,
very
and
like,
other
yeah.
people, like, when I mention that, they're like, I don't get what you're talking
No,
about."
I know what you're saying because I watched that like a year ago and I love that movie, but that is one thing I noticed is she was so like exaggerated. like northeastern,
Mhm.
like kind of like, oh really, like very like just
Like
real,
cartoonish.
yeah, kind of
Mhm.
airheadish. That was the one
Mhm.
thing that kind of takes you a bit out of it. But like you said, maybe that is kind of, it is a weird thing because that's kind of what does make De Palma memorable, is like these
Mhm.
weird little things that he does. Like
Right.
even the end of this movie when it's like zooming in on Greg Henry, he's like, "Come on, you want one more take? Come on!" And he's like, and it's zooming in, and then it shows him in the coffin, and it's like
Yeah.
it's silly, but it really works to me because it's just
Mhm.
something about it. It's like another character in the movie, like
Right.
it's alive. I don't know how really to explain that, but to me that does work. That sort of silliness, you
You
know.
know, that whole vampire character thing, I think that Craig Wasson does a good job of with that. But you know, all I could think about when they were showing the vampire, even later on,
Hmm.
where the whole like the body double and that is telling him, don't squeeze my boobs too hard. I'm on
Yeah,
my period. They're
yes.
kind of sore, you know. It's like that's kind of goofy, but the whole that whole vampire character, you know what actor I was thinking about that whole time, and I couldn't get out of my head
What's
was
that?
Garrett Graham. I
Yes.
could imagine Garrett Graham, and De Palma's used him in other movies, but I could just see him as that vampire character for some reason.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a Garrett Graham type of character, but
Ye
instead we got Craig Wasson, who does an
yeah.
excellent job, but I just could not. I couldn't get Garrett Graham out of my head.
That kinda silliness, yeah, kinda like him in TerrorVision, and yeah.
Hmm.
He plays those type of roles real well, even like Used Cars, he's good in that
Yeah.
movie too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
it's
even with Phantom of the Paradise, the
mhm.
character of Beef, that whole goofy, almost, and I'm not trying to offend any homosexual guys out there, but there is a to me there's a homosexual element to that Beef character. I
Yeah,
just yeah, it's there. Um,
I haven't seen
but
Phantom of the Paradise in so long, I need to rewatch that one.
yeah, I really, you know, some people say it's a little, well, they don't say a little, but they say it's quite a bit goofy, but I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because
It's like Rocky Horror type, I mean, it's
yeah,
fun.
exactly. And I love Rocky Horror Picture Show. I mean, I can't get enough of that movie, but like
Mhm.
if you try to get my parents to watch Rocky Horror, for instance, they just don't, that is not their type of film. And mom's especially is vocal about, I don't understand why you like that movie. I was like, well, I didn't get it the first time I watched it. It kind of grew on me after a while. And then when I got the chance to actually see it with a shadow cast,
Yeah.
um, that was very interesting. And I
I
would
bet.
have loved to have seen it done live.
Yeah.
But I never, unfortunately, I never got the chance to see it like that. A lot of people don't like to watch it with a shadow cast, but I thought that was really interesting to me.
We saw it Becca and I saw it at a local theater before Halloween, and we
Mhm.
did there was a shadow cast type thing also that night at
Right.
another place, and I was like, I'm so tired. I don't know if I can deal with that kind of crowd tonight. Because, but we went to the theater and there were people in there who were like dancing and doing the stuff.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny. And she likes it 'cause she likes Tim Curry. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a funny, I don't love the movie, but I do like, it's a fun movie and the songs are always like memorable, you know. So
And when we went and saw it with a shadow cast, it was like, they were the audience was yelling at Brad and calling him an asshole.
yeah.
And, because you're an asshole, they would just do
Yeah.
all that stuff. And then um, I didn't pay the extra to get the little, like the newspaper to put on your head. It's
Yeah.
the part where it's raining or storming or whatever.
Yeah.
But I wish I had now, because
Mhm.
that's kind of something that you could take home with you. But some people did, and I would see them, with the storm scene, they were putting it on their head, and and two, that movie, The Room. I don't know how many of you guys have seen The Room, but
Oh yeah, Tommy was so. Oh yeah.
Tommy Wiseau. That's all. All you need to know right there.
Yeah.
Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah.
But me and Steve actually went to see a showing of that, where we ended up Steve doesn't have hair, so he didn't get it, but I ended up getting like spoons, plastic spoons caught in my hair and stuff, because
Wow.
every time they would talk about spoons, people would start throwing the plastic spoons and stuff, and forks and everything.
Man.
And, I think Steve's ear got grazed by a couple of plastic spoons and forks.
Wow.
But I actually got them caught in my hair. I was like picking them out of my hair, but it was fun
Mhm.
because it's another layer to already crazy movie, but to watch it with an audience who's yelling back at the screen, throwing plastic spoons and forks, and all of that. When you watch movies like that are uh, they want you to participate
Yeah.
in the craziness of the movie, because The Room is not a good film. I remember Steve
No.
introducing me to The Room without having an audience. He was like, "Have you ever seen The Room?" And I'm like, "No, I had never heard of it before him telling me about it." He's like, "Oh, we gotta watch this." And so that was an experience. It was So if you've never seen The Room,
Mhm.
I urge you to give it a try, because it's not a good film. It's a terrible film, actually. But Tommy Wiseau probably thought he was making a great film. And also, if you see The Room, I urge you to watch The Disaster Artist,
Yes, I
which is
love that movie.
about Tommy Wiseau and pretty much the making of The Room.
Mhm.
Um, which, even like watch The Room and then watch The Disaster Artist. Watch them back to back, and you'll have a good time with.
That's probably the best A24 movie ever that A24 has made.
Oh
Because
yeah,
A24 did that, and
by
I
by
have it.
far.
Yeah, that's probably the best, because it's funny how that works. Like, a terrible movie is made, but
Mhm.
it's kind of like Ed Wood. Like, a
Yeah,
terrible movie is made, or a terrible filmmaker exists, but then they make a movie about that terrible filmmaker, and that movie is great.
exactly,
Like, Ed Wood was a
exactly.
terrible filmmaker, but Ed Wood the movie is a great movie.
Yeah,
It's
it,
almost like a legacy. It's like, if you like, if you're a bad filmmaker, someone may make a good movie about you.
yeah, yeah, and just like, oh God, I could have a whole stream on Tommy Wiseau and The
Gosh.
Room.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
on Tim and Eric too. If you've ever watched Tim and Eric, awesome show.
I don't think
He's on
I
there.
have. Oh wow. I
Yeah.
need to then. I need
Yeah, he's something else. He's like, lies about his age, and just like, he's such a character. No one knows exactly where he's from. No one knows exactly how old he is.
Mhm.
It's like in that movie, in The Disaster Artist. She's like, "How old are you?" He's like, 21. Or does he say like 20, 21? It's like, no, dude, you're like 40.
No.
Yeah.
And you wanna see some cringy sex scenes? The
Oh
Room
gosh.
has them.
Yes. Oh
You're just
god.
like, "Oh god, I want this to be over. I don't wanna see any more of Tommy Wiseau," because not only does he direct this movie, he's in this freaking movie.
Yeah, he was trying to be Marlon Brando, I think, was his inspiration, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it didn't quite work.
no, not at all.
Oh man. Okay, so I'm gonna read a few of these comments
Yeah.
here. The mayor says, I haven't seen Body Double in forever. Yeah, well, that's the way I felt too, Mayor. I hadn't seen it in forever, and so it was almost like a fresh new experience for me. And the mayor also says both Body Double and Dress to Kill are very much giallos, which I completely agree with. Hey, Darren is back. He says Schizoid is another American giallo. Black Glove Killer with scissors, good film. Body Double is another great De Palma film. His horror thrillers are superb at that time.
Oh,
Agree
definitely.
with all of that, Darren. Darren also says, have either of you seen Passion
I haven't
from
seen that one.
2022? I have not. He says De Palma doing an erotic thriller. It's not great, but a decent time waster.
Interesting.
Darren says the 2012. Sorry, it's late. LOL. That's okay, Darren. I totally get that.
Yeah, De Palma later on kind of, I don't know. He had a lot of misses later on in
Hmm.
life, like a lot of directors. I mean, it's not fair to judge him on that because so many directors dip once they get older and they kind of, it's not the same. Like I remember as a kid going to see Snake Eyes with my
Yeah.
mom and sister because they were fans of Nick Cage. They were not De Palma fans by any stretch of the
Hmm.
imagination, but they loved Nick Cage just because Nick Cage was like the actor in the early 90s, right? And
Right.
so I went to them to see that for some reason, and I didn't know it was a De Palma. I was like 12. I didn't know it was a De Palma movie. And I
Hmm.
remember liking it, and they hated it. And I remember thinking it was odd because it's Snake Eyes is the one with the boxing and the whole mystery.
Hmm.
And later on, I realized it was De Palma, and I'm like, oh, that fucking makes sense. Like the cinematography and like
Yeah.
I did the kid, I never put that together, but now it's like that's pretty obvious. That's a De Palma movie. But
Hmm. So also says you both got me wanting to watch this again now. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that I because it renewed my interest
mhm.
in the movie. And I was like, I don't know why I haven't like probably because it's a DVD. The DVD is the only thing that I have.
Mhm.
I found out, when wanting to rewatch it, that Steve, of course, has got a decent copy on the hard drive,
Mhm.
which allowed me to, go back and watch it because believe it or not, you can't watch it for free on YouTube. They wanted you to pay for it, buy it or rent it.
There
Which,
is the Internet Archive has it. That's how I was
oh,
watching
do
it.
they have it?
They've
Okay.
got an HD version. I can share it. I don't know. I've tried to share stuff on the chat and it usually doesn't let me. So what happens is I've tried to share links and YouTube
Mm-hmm.
just it doesn't post it. I think they don't
Oh,
like doing
okay.
that. But if you Google watch Body Double online free,
Okay.
it's like one of the top links. It's like archive.org and it's like
Mhm.
HD Blu-ray quality. It's great.
Ooh, I'm gonna have. I think if I watch, well, I know I'm gonna watch it again at some point. That I'll go that route.
Yeah, if you ever
Um,
need a movie, let me know. I can pretty much find absolutely anything, even if it's a lot of anime porn pop-ups. I can find it. It's just sometimes it's a pain in the ass getting around the pop-ups, but
or
I
you
can.
have these little like
Yeah.
one. Speaking of that, what this wasn't anime porn. This was like real life porn
Oh
stuff.
no.
Like I didn't realize that I'd went to a site with this in the margins, but I was trying to find something. All of a sudden, I noticed what was going on in the margins. I was like, "Holy crap!" And Steve said, "Yeah, you got to watch out for that." It's like, okay.
That's
I
funny.
mean, I'm a big girl now and everything, but geez,
Sometimes you don't expect that.
no, it's like it couldn't have been more blatant than if it was right in front of me and people were doing that. I think a woman was giving a guy a blow job or something, and I was like,
I'm
okay.
just trying to watch Scooby Doo for free. I don't need this. Yeah.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was there's a time and a place for that, and then
Yeah.
and it wasn't right then. So,
Yeah. Like I will say this movie, there is a Blu-ray for this movie,
mhm.
but
I
it's
thought
not.
there was.
but it's not. I think it's a Columbia Sony one, and it's not
Ah,
very advertised. I
gotcha.
I would go as far as to say Arrow or somebody's gonna do something with this at some point. Like I'm really surprised no one has.
Yeah.
This is right up Arrow Video's alley, doing like a big
Oh my
set and
gosh,
all.
yeah.
So there might be a rights thing. I don't know if that's what it is, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of shocked that what I was really shocked about, to go back to Dress to Kill, was Kino Lorber put that out on 4K. I'm surprised
yeah.
Criterion didn't do it. And so I don't know if they maybe lost
Hmm.
the rights to that and weren't able to, or
Yeah, that's
what the
weird.
deal was, because Criterion put the Blowout 4K
Yeah.
out, but then Kino Lorber got the 4K for Dress to Kill.
Yeah, I mean Criterion could do Body Double, although those stuck up asses, they probably be like, that's too sleazy for us, or so. I don't know how Criterion. I don't know how that
But
works.
then I'm shocked by some of the stuff that Criterion does release or does put
Yeah,
out
like
for their
Repo
label.
Man
Yeah, exactly,
or
exactly.
like Eraserhead. Like I love like Eraserhead is a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a weird, but come on, like some of the stuff they put out, like and then they also do the thing where they used to put out stuff on Laserdisc that they don't put out now.
Mhm.
Like Halloween got a Criterion on
Yeah,
Laserdisc, but it's not a RoboCop. It got a Criterion, but it's not on Blu-ray or 4K.
yeah.
So I don't know if maybe that's a rights thing. Maybe they get it and then they lose it. I'm
Mm,
not sure, but
yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. I was just sort of shocked that Kino Lorber got to put out Dress to Kill on 4K,
yeah,
but but Criterion put out, I believe, the Blu-ray of it. Yeah, they put
mhm,
out the Blu-ray of it because I had that previous. Um, and I've said this about Kino Lorber before. They do an excellent job with the transfers.
mhm,
But if you're looking for, and this isn't a deal breaker for me when I get a 4K, but if you're looking for those really fancy menus, you're not
right,
going to get it with Kino Lorber. And if you're looking for really great extras,
mhm.
you're probably not going to get it with Kino Lorber.
No, not
Either.
at all. It's basic. It's kind of like it's Kino has the same kind of thing as like what is it? Oh gosh, Mill Creek and shit. It's just like you're
Yeah,
just you're just getting
exactly.
the movie, and sometimes they might put one special feature on there or something. They
Mhm.
might like there's one of the Blu-rays I have from Kino, and it's got like one interview on it.
Yeah,
But like you said, it's the transfers are great, but it's very basic. The one of the reasons I think the cost is so low for the sales is because you're not getting all the stuff that like Vinegar Syndrome or Arrow does.
right.
Which I
Exactly.
don't mind. I just want the movie.
Mhm.
Like I got the Martin Blu 4K. I got it from Diabolic the other day. I pre-ordered it, and I didn't get the special edition. I just got the 20. I guess it's the $28, $29 one.
Oh, okay, so you didn't get all the bells and whistles with it.
Nah, because I just want the movie. I just didn't want to pay 60 for because I saw what was in it. I mean, it's cool, but I don't. That's I don't know. I'm just stop. I'm trying to stop doing that because sometimes it's like I'm going to watch the movie and the rest of it. I don't know. It's
Right.
just going to sit there. So, but I don't fault anyone for getting it because that's a crazy rare movie. So,
So, Darren, bruh, I did not realize this, but Darren says the Indicator Blu-ray of Body Double is the way to go.
no, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. So I've got maybe a one or two Indicator releases, which they do a good job.
Yeah.
I think I have the Happy Birthday to Me, and this was previous to the recent release of Happy Birthday to Me,
Hmm.
that I got on Indicator, I believe.
See, I have that one on Mill Creek. It's just you just play the movie.
Yeah, I got you.
But I agree because they just put that on Kino. But I
Hmm.
think they put stuff on it with the Kino one.
Yeah. Hmm. And Darren also says John hit the nail on the head. De Palma's love letter to Hitchcock, and I agree with that too as well. Um, but yeah, what that is something, with Darren say you both got me wanting to watch this again. Now that's kind of what I'm hoping will happen with several of these movies
Hmm.
that I've been doing with this my dinner with De Palma thing.
Hmm.
Um, like that movie Obsession that De Palma did.
Yeah.
That was a movie that flew under my radar forever. I didn't even know anything about it.
Same. I didn't know anything about that.
And then I watched it for the stream and I was like, this is a really great movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it flew under my radar. And I think Darren was saying that it was one that he didn't he didn't hate it, but he didn't really much care for it. He didn't have a lot of love for it.
Yeah.
But then after I talked about how much I enjoyed it, he talked about going back and revisiting it.
Yeah.
So that is my hope that either people will give some of these films another chance or they will watch them for the first time as well. So I'm hoping Darren is able to watch Scarface
Did
too because he hadn't seen it.
Do you know this movie was given an X when it came out?
Wow, I did not know that.
That's
Uh,
crazy to me. Like, and they're talking about it's controversial. This is so silly to me though, because it was nominated for a Golden Globe for Melanie
mhm.
Griffith. But what's so silly to me about that is that people are like, "Oh, it's controversial." It's like, but it's not. Like when you watch the movie, there's nothing wasted on it. It's
Mm-mm.
everything is for. It's not like he's making a sleazy movie just to make. He's not. It's not like he's making a movie to be like, I made a porno.
No,
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 that's not what this is. He's using that as a way to tell this story. Like it's like I don't know why critics can't figure that out. Like I was
and
reading these reviews.
this is not porn level
No,
either. I mean, it might be softcore
it's
at
graphic,
best.
but
Yeah. Um, and it some of the scenes are shocking, just like I was talking about the Barbara Crampton scene near the beginning. It's definitely shocking, but it's not pornography.
no. No, this is not like a slasher where, like I said, like slasher movies use TNA as a way just to like get a male demographic. It's like
Yeah.
that's their selling point. They're just like, oh, we can make this money if we show some boobs, right? That's part of it. I get it. But
So,
like that's not why De Palma made this movie. He's not making this
mm,
movie to like I mean, that I could see why people may think that without watching it, but I don't know. I read these reviews and I'm just like, are these people stupid or something? Like,
he wasn't trying to make a sleaze fest.
no. I don't
uh,
know.
and since we're talking about the kind of the adult film element, uh, hands up for everybody that did watch this recently.
Yeah.
Who caught Brink Stevens cameo
Yeah.
in this?
She was in the movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I had forgotten Brink Stevens was in here too," and but which it was really cool the way De Palma worked her, kind of weaved her into this.
I thought when I saw that, I thought that was her, but I wasn't
Mhm,
certain. I did notice one thing I did notice the biggest cameo was in the department store when
mhm.
Gloria walks in and he's watching and they call the security guard. Did you recognize who that worker was in the department store? The one with the dark hair?
I did not catch that.
That was Gozer from Ghostbusters. Same
Okay,
actress. I
yeah,
forget her name,
I'm
but
yeah, I'm seeing that in my mind now. Yeah, how did I miss that?
what is her name in real life? Slatvitsa Jovan.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But she was I saw that face and I was like, oh, that's Gozer. But
Yeah,
I forgot about
you're
that
right.
too. That and the Barbara Crampton thing, I just didn't even register in my head.
Hmm. And I just think that that scene was so quick, and I think just the overt nudity and how, like I said, how quick it was. It was a flash of like Barbara Crampton's boobs and stuff. It was almost
Yeah.
um so quick that you didn't even realize it was, or I didn't realize for a half a second that it was Barbara Crampton.
Yeah, and I think when I first saw this, I would have been like 19 or 20. So at that time, I mean, I don't think I was as big of a genre fan of horror. I was a
Hmm.
fan, but I wasn't so much a fan as I don't think I would have noticed Barbara Crampton in a role like that so small. So like at
Hmm.
the time I didn't think about it, but I think that's like now I see that. That's like the first, like right when I saw that, I text my friend Jay and I was like, well, your girl's in this right at the beginning
Right.
because he loves Barbara Crampton. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's weird how sometimes you watch things and you notice odd stuff like that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, so there were quite a few, I guess, cameos. I guess you could call Barbara Crampton scene a cameo
mhm,
because she's in there and then she's not. I mean,
yeah,
you see that one shocking scene and then it's done.
yeah,
It's done. It's over with. You don't see Barbara Crampton again in the film.
mm-mm.
Um, Darren says, would love to see De Palma make another thriller. If Dario can do it with dark glasses, I'm sure he could make something decent. Oh, I'm sure he could too. But like John brought up a little bit ago, that all of these great directors seem to go through low periods or
Yeah.
periods where it's like you almost can't believe that's the same person that's directing. When it gets to that low point in their career, you you wonder, you're left wondering what happened here. How did they get from Y to Z or whatever, or A to Z? um how did they get to this point in their career where um and I'm not saying that De Palma had a film that was like super bad or anything,
Hmm.
but I've seen it with a lot of genre directors. I saw it with George Romero. I saw it with Sam Raimi. I saw it with Toby Hooper. All of those guys had duds in there. I mean, it happens to the best of us, I guess.
They just kind of a lot of times I think these older filmmakers lose sight of what they were or what made them special. I think
Mhm.
Spielberg does that sometimes. Spielberg, I think, is still competent, but I think he, like George Lucas, like a lot of these guys, sort of like learned the wrong lessons. I would say, like
Mhm.
they looked at their film in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they're like, okay, we did things this way. We edited this way, we shot on film, we did this way, we use practical effects. A
Right.
lot of filmmakers who come out of that and they get older, they go, that's what they do is they get older and they go, well, we got CGI now and it's just easier. We got digital and we got this. And it's like they learn all the wrong lessons
Mhm.
when they should be learning. What they should be thinking is, okay, we don't need to go cheap. We need to do it the right way. But
Right.
instead, they cut all these corners because they think that's not important, maybe. Or sometimes maybe they do, and it's just they're not going to win that fight with a studio. But I
Right.
think a lot of these guys just, they're not making those type of movies that they used to make. Like even like a De Palma or an Argento. Like I think
Mhm.
they would have to take a lot of effort and time to make a movie with a story, the way it's shot and everything the way it used to be to make it feel like, oh wow, this is like a real classic movie from them. Like I think that requires a certain level of It's like I don't know how. I just think they lose sight of that somehow. I'm not even saying they're trying to do it intentionally, but I hear that all the time from these directors, and I heard that so much from Lucas about Star Wars, where he was just like, "Oh, well, CGI just made this so much easier," and I'm like, that's not the takeaway for any of this.
Well, I think we talked several of us have talked about this before too, that less is more.
Yeah.
Like you have a director make a better film with less money, with less resources, because they're forced to be more creative.
Absolutely.
And several of us have talked about that. So it's not lost on any of us.
No.
Even you guys that are in the chat, it's not lost on you either. That a filmmaker can make a better film with less money and less resources. That's just a fact. The more money and the more resources you give to them, the more things are going to start to be overused.
I do think a lot of these filmmakers have like a creative tank that runs out. I think it happens to everybody. I think they have so many good ideas in the tank, and then it gets to that point where they just don't have much of anything left.
They're running on fumes at some point.
John Carpenter, that happens to most filmmakers. I think Tarantino is at that point where he knows that I think he knows that will happen, because he's even said it, and that's why he's like, I only want to make so many movies, because he probably understands that that's going to happen. And I don't fault anybody. It's hard. I think no filmmaker is exempt from that, and it's also like, when you're making movies back then, it was just so different. It was such a special time period. Like the culture and the time period and all the elements, it just makes this magical. It's the same thing we talked about. Like, I think we had discussed like the Friday the 13th series. Everybody wants that to be. Everybody thinks about that. What they want is they want to relive the Paramount Friday the 13th movies. They want to be like, I want to see fucking 1982 Jason, right? That's what they want to see. That's never gonna happen.
Exactly, John.
You can want it, but it's just like wishing for something that doesn't exist anymore. It's just not. It's not feasible,
So I think we would probably do better if we just appreciated the stuff that was done during that time period and just call it good, and quit wishing for something that we can't have. The time has come and gone, in my opinion, for things like Friday the 13th, things like Halloween, things like even Phantasm. I think that's why I was so sad watching Phantasm Ravager.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. One, because Angus Scrimm was so sick at that point that it was really pointless to have the tall man in there. They just need to stop. I think I told Uncle Bill that I didn't want to. I was through seeing Halloween movies. I don't want to see them anymore. No. I don't want anybody to do them anymore. Friday the 13th, the same. Phantasm, the same. I don't think we're going to get any more Phantasms, or I hope we don't get any more Phantasms. The Evil Dead movies, the same. Because there was a time and a place for a fourth Evil Dead movie, but it's come and gone, and now I don't want it anymore. I don't care if Sam Raimi was directing that. I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of that, like Scream, I think still has a shelf life, just because I think Scream was so close enough to the millennium that I think it still has like a little bit of that look and feel of what it was with the way they shoot it and the story. It's not the same, but it's still close enough to where that still can have a shelf life to keep going a little bit. But I agree, like the rest of those, like Halloween, even though those movies were shot great, it is still hard because it still was different. It wasn't the same. But I agree. It's just like at a certain point, you want something that's not going to happen, and you got to just like come to terms with that. It's the same thing with even like Giallos, though. Like I don't. We're never going to see a Deep Red again. That's not going to happen. No one's going to make that kind of movie just because it's just so. That was a time and place. But I think you can get things that are good now. I think it's just got to be something different. It's got to be something unique and different now. And it's got to be something that isn't copying everything else. You know, like Pearl. I love Pearl. I thought it was great. I mean, you can have good stuff. I just think it's, like you said, you got to try to be a little more original and make something that works now, you know? Because you're not going to redo what was done so great 30 years ago.
No, there's no way. And Darren brings up a good point. He says, Sammy, what are you doing? You never jump up here like this. But anyway, Darren says, I'm hoping with the releases of X and Pearl that we see more old school films set in the 70s and 80s. And that makes perfect sense to me. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
And it's just like you said, John, if they're going to go that route, they need to make something unique. Don't just regurgitate the same old stuff, because it's not going to work. That stuff is not going to work anymore. The Halloweens, the Friday the 13th, the Phantasms, the Evil Deads, that stuff is not going to work anymore. Or it's just going to seem tired. But if they can do something like X, like Pearl, then I'd definitely go for that stuff. I enjoyed X. I enjoyed Pearl. I'm looking forward to Maxine. Whenever it gets here.
It might be like a body double. You never know. I mean, it's set in the 80s. It could be that kind of feel because it's like in the porn industry, I think, in the movie. I mean, I think that's probably why people love Terrifier so much too, is like, I can understand why the horror fans latched into it, because it is like, it's not, I don't think it's a good movie at all, but I think like from a gore effects perspective, like I could see why so many people were like latched into that, because that's something that hasn't been done in so long like that. But I just think like, I don't know. I think that's good in one sense, but I also just kind of wish that like I could have gotten a better movie. I just, at the end of the day, I'd rather just get a really great movie too, you know. But I totally get why people like it. I understand it. So, you know, especially
now. For whatever reason, I enjoyed the first Terrifier movie immensely.
I thought it was better than the second one.
Yeah.
I do agree, yeah.
But then Steve and I both, and I was shocked that Steve said this about Terrifier 2. He said that it was overkill.
Yeah.
And, you know, Dirk, if you're still in here, bless your heart. I am glad that you enjoyed it. But I had to agree with Steve on that I thought it was overkill. And I love my gore as well as the next gore hound.
Yeah.
As well as the next horror fan. But there's a time and a place for gore.
Right.
And I just thought that, I don't know if they thought that they had something to prove with Terrifier 2, if that's what the deal was. But it just, went into areas that I guess I just wasn't interested in going along for the ride with.
It was a lot of shock value. They definitely
Mhm.
wanted to shock everybody. I mean, I think I don't know. I just because I remember Steve said that, and I agree. Because like to me, it's just my opinion, but I just think that like that shit was mastered like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Like High Tension and Martyrs, they already hit that scale for me. Like that mix of like
Mhm.
really gory, but also being very suspenseful, being a great movie, but like being shocking to where you're like, fuck, this is really crazy. Like, I just think those French filmmakers back then, they beat that. Like, there's no one was going to top that. And I just
No.
think this now was just like, that's really, it's just a special effects reel. It's literally like something you would make to be like, look what I can do, and
Yeah.
I can see it for that. I just think as a movie, like, I don't, to each their own. I just like the movie is like abysmal in my opinion. It's not good, but I mean, I don't want to say, I don't blame people for liking it.
Uh-huh.
I do a podcast with three other guys, and two of us hated it, and two of them loved it. So
Yeah.
I understand. Everybody's different. I think everybody see things a little differently, so they're looking for something a little bit differently.
Mhm.
I know one guy on the Dead Pit page thought I was like an idiot for not liking it. I thought that was funny. I don't remember who it
Oh,
was.
I remember you telling me that you got kind of blasted because
Yeah, he was like, he was like, I don't remember who it was. He was like, oh, I'm sure you're a Halloween Ends fan, and I'm just like, okay, all right, that's like he was just going back and forth, and just like I was like, okay, I get it.
wasn't he just telling you like you just don't get it
No,
or
yeah, I said I don't get it, and like I'm
yeah.
probably like trying to fit me into like, and I was like, okay, that's fine, that's cool, man. It's just different strokes. Everybody looks at
Yeah.
things differently. I just don't measure a movie based on gore. I think some people like I don't think that's just horror. I just think some genre fans like that, they just have like measurements. It's like a list. They're just checking off a list. Like, does it have this? Does it have that? Kind of like the Joe Bob deal where he's joking, where
Yeah.
he's like 4 boobs. Like
Yes.
I honestly think there are horror fans that do that. They literally, if it doesn't hit a list, they're like, it's not horror.
Mhm.
Like I had a guy I used to know, we would talk about RoboCop, and I remember he used to think I was an idiot because I said RoboCop had horror elements to it. And he was like, it's not a horror movie. And I'm like, kind of is,
Yeah.
but it's just everybody's different. I think some of these genre fans look at like have checklists.
Mhm.
But like I said, I don't want to insult people. If you like the movie, I get it.
Yeah, I'm like that too. Like to each his own.
Yeah.
Like you said, different strokes. You
Yeah.
know, you can't like, and I do this with old Curly Jaws, and I think old Curly Jaws gets what I'm talking about, like with the generational thing. I
Hmm.
say I think it's just a generational gap
Sure.
with a lot of this stuff. The new fans, some of them can be like old curly jaws. They'll just go with it,
Yes.
and they get where the other person is coming from. And then you've got the guys like that kind of blasted you on the Dead Pit page. Um, that I guess they just think that some of us are just trying to get them, get their goat or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um,
I stopped trying to figure it out. I've had people, yeah, I've had some of those type of people be like, "You're not a true horror fan." I'm like,
mm.
"Fuck off!" Like, come on.
So,
Like, good lord, these are like the same people that like. There's one guy on Facebook. He used to post stuff, and he would like not watch anything else. He would never watch anything else but horror. And I was just
mhm.
like, okay, okay. Like it's just at a certain point, it's like you just have to realize some people are just crazy, or they're just like
Yeah.
fast fixated on something, and it's like all they see. I don't know, But like you can't take it personally because you don't know a lot of these people either. They're just looking for an outlet. But yeah,
Well,
I mean,
me and Steve even used to have arguments over stuff like, I guess Steve would get mad at me because I'm very vocal about stuff. Sometimes, like, he'll be sitting there watching something
mhm.
and I'm just da 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 da, over here talking in his other ear about stuff. And then he gets aggravated with that. I mean, we got in a real argument over the Wolf Cop movie.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
those. I've heard about them. I need to
Uh-huh.
see them.
And so now, I don't want to get in an argument with my husband over a movie. So I just don't say a lot of stuff now. It's kind of like you were saying you would rather not get in an argument with somebody over a horror movie or something on the Dead Pit page or any other page. So yeah, I totally get that.
I will say that like there is a whole thing. I was talking to Becca about this, and I talked to my friend TJ, not Frizzy, another TJ who's on our
Uh,
podcast about this. Is like there's a lot of people who are into like horror and
mm-hmm.
things like that, and like anything like niche things like metal music, or they're into like
Mm-hmm.
toys, or they're into like there is definitely a lot of like it's like what they call highly sensitive personality. Like it's called
Uh-huh.
like it's like highly sensitive, and then there's something called rejection dysmorph dis it's like a disorder basically. And what it
I think
is
I've
like
heard of that. Yeah.
it's like people who are very touchy, but they're also like they can't handle like rejection. So like if you disagree with them, they like get very like they just don't like it. You know, they're
Mhm.
very adverse to it. And I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but there's also theories that people into this are autistic. They're like on the
Mhm.
spectrum. So like there's all kinds of like shit with this kind of stuff that can kind of explain a lot of this type of behavior you see from people sometimes where they're
Yeah.
just, they just get so like, like the arc. I'm not saying that everybody's like that. I'm just saying that those type of things usually attract that type of personality,
Mhm.
myself included. So, it's not surprising to me that you get like a lot of this cattiness sometimes with
Right.
discussions and arguments because you're getting different personalities and so hope that's not offensive saying that.
I don't feel like it is.
Yeah, but
But
I discussed that with him a few times, and we had both noticed that with different people like in our local community here. But
mhm. Well, John, I hate to, like in everybody else, I hate to say I've got to go, but
oh, I got to too.
I was looking at the time and it's 11:20 here, and I do have one more day of work to get through, and I'm sure a lot of other people do. And we've also been on here for 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Uh,
my bad. I know we cut
no,
off from the
that's
movie
no, it's
some.
cool. I have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed all the different side conversations we've had.
Mhm.
Um, but John, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about either of the two movies or
No, just
anything you want to promote?
Body Double. I would just really anyone who hasn't seen it, go see it. It's like such a great Hitchcock suspense type movie. It's like sleazy Hitchcock is like the best way I can describe
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um,
That is a perfect way to describe it, actually.
it's so good though, so underrated, and a lot of creepy scenes, so many memorable shots in the cinematography. And as far as promoting, no, I mean I'm in a podcast. It's called the Horror Sanctum Podcast.
Hmm.
I don't share it a lot. I need to. I share it on Instagram a lot, but we just did an episode on Tremors, and then we just recorded an episode for a movie called Theater of Blood, a Vincent Price movie. So we're
Awesome.
rocking and rolling with that. Just doing. We're way ahead though, but we've done 4 or 5 episodes now. So that's kind of the only thing I'm working on now from just the YouTube podcast thing.
Okay, well, that's cool. And I'm glad that you brought that up again, John, because I love to give people an opportunity to promote their stuff, because I don't want to just come on here and it's all about Dana, not
No,
all
yeah.
about what I'm doing. But I do want to thank John for being on here with me tonight. I was kind of hoping that we would have a few other people on here, but if I keep these going, maybe it'll catch on. But
Oh, definitely.
but I do also want to remind everybody that I am doing a watch along this Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern time for Don't Open Till Christmas. Oh, and by the way, Steve is doing a show Saturday as well through the Dead Pit. I guess the Dead Pit stream type
Sweet.
of thing. So you guys can look forward to that. And then following that, of course, I'll be doing my Don't Open Till Christmas watch along. And if anybody wants to join in on that, I will have a link in the chat where anybody can click on that if they want to join in on that. Oh, and hopefully I'll have some more fun stuff going on.
Nice. Yeah, I missed the Night of the Comet. That's like one of my favorite 80s movies, but it's
Oh,
been a crazy
yeah.
week, so I missed that one. But yeah, that's a good
Yeah, TJ was on here with me, and we had a good time with that. I wish we could have gotten some more people in on that, but it happens. It happens to the best of us.
Oh, sure.
I haven't been feeling too hot, and with work and not feeling too good, I didn't get a chance to do as many streams this week as I had wanted to do, but I definitely did want to do this one,
Yeah.
the Palma one. But I was laughing because Texas says wolf cop hate. Every time I mention not liking that movie, he says that.
Funny.
And Darren says, "Have a good one, guys." Well, Darren, if you're still in here, you have a good one too. And I guess with all of that being said, I'm gonna skedaddle on out of here for the night, and I will see everyone on the flip side. So you guys all have a good night. Again, John, thank you for being on here with me tonight. You have an open invitation anytime. And
appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yep, I always have fun.
Cool. Talk to y'all later.
Yeah. Everybody have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.